Chapter 1251. The cold wind howled, and the area that had been covered in thick smoke and raging flames was now filled with a cold breeze. The gray-furred monster didn't know what Tang Ao was doing. At that moment, it only had one thought in its mind, and that was to tear this human who had offended it to shreds. So even though the surrounding cold air made the gray-furred monster very uncomfortable, after it roared, it opened its huge mouth, and a huge gray ball of light shot towards Tang Ao. The speed of the ball of light was extremely shocking, and the terrifying aura on the ball of light also indicated that it could reap lives at any time. After seeing this ball of light, Tang Ao's expression also became serious. At the same time, Tang Ao was also a little shocked because this ball of light was completely formed by compressed primordial qi. Just now, Tang Ao didn't see this gray-furred monster compressing primordial qi. In other words, the gray-furred monster could instantly compress such a large amount of primordial qi. Tang Ao guessed that this should be one of the gray-furred monster's talents. However, Tang Ao was still secretly shocked. Although the gray-furred monster didn't look very good, the amount and purity of the primordial qi in its body was extremely terrifying. If one did not have enough essence qi, or if one's essence qi was not pure enough, it would be impossible to instantly spit out such a ball of light. In the blink of an eye, the gray ball of light whizzed in front of Tang Ao. Taking a deep breath, the snow pattern in Tang Ao's eyes suddenly spun, changing into a new seal. Immediately, countless fine ice crystals appeared out of nowhere in the surrounding space, covering the gray ball of light. At that moment, the gray ball of light seemed to have an infinite attraction force, and the fine ice crystals in all directions were attracted by it, continuously gathering towards the gray ball of light. Finally, when the gray ball of light rushed in front of Tang Ao, it was already frozen into a ball of ice by the sky polar eye. The corner of Tang Ao's mouth curved into a playful smile, and then the gray-furred monster was shocked to see that the ball of light it spat out actually flew back the way it came. The gray-furred monster was scared out of its wits. It couldn't be any more aware of how powerful its attack was. Therefore, the gray-furred monster stomped heavily on the ground, and then immediately rose up. The moment the gray-haired monster jumped, the ice ball also arrived under it. Tang Ao snapped his fingers, and the ice hockey ball exploded. At this moment, it was as if an ice storm had swept through this space. Countless ice crystals wreaked havoc, and the surrounding ground and walls were instantly frozen. This scene was far beyond Tang Ao's expectations. Tang Ao didn't expect that his playful actions would cause such great damage. Tang Ao was not exaggerating when he said that it was destroyed. After a few cracking sounds, the frozen houses and the surrounding vegetation were all shattered into a pile of ice. Even so, Tang Ao was still unable to break through the monster's terrifying defense. Although this unexpected attack froze the gray-furred monster into a huge block of ice, it still didn't hurt it. Instead, it angered it even more. Roar! The gray-furred monster suddenly roared from within the block of ice, and then Tang Ao saw traces of cracks appear on the ice. Tang Ao immediately raised his hand, and a gust of cold wind instantly appeared around the ice, about to freeze it again. However, Tang Ao still underestimated the gray-furred monster's damage. With a bang, the block of ice that sealed the gray-furred monster shattered into ice shards that filled the sky. Chapter 1252. At this time, if he wanted to kill the gray-furred monster, Tang Ao still had many methods. However, these methods all had their limits. For example, the lightning fall formation he used against the three-tailed blood civet on the boat could definitely blast the gray-furred monster into pieces. However, Tang Ao clearly didn't have the time to set up the formation. Moreover, the gray-furred monster wasn't slow. Once it sensed danger, it would very likely flee. Other than the lightning fall formation, summoning Underworld's netherworld sword, Qi, could also kill the gray-furred monster. However, summoning Underworld's netherworld sword chi consumed a lot of Tang Ao's energy. With Tang Ao's current state, if he summoned netherworld sword chi again, Tang Ao would immediately collapse. Therefore, unless he was facing a life and death crisis, Tang Ao didn't want to summon netherworld sword chi again. The Hidden Dragon Cave wasn't a good place. There was danger everywhere. Losing the ability to fight in this place was a very scary thing. Without the ability to fight back, this meant that anyone here could easily kill you. With the previous encounter with the Yuan cultivating pill, Tang Ao felt that this worry wasn't unnecessary. After he lost the ability to fight, there would definitely be a large group of people coming to ask for Yuan cultivating pills. Other than the lightning fall formation and netherworld sword chi, Tang Ao had many other methods. For example, he could use the primordial sacred heavenly bow. The primordial sacred heavenly bow was an immortal artifact. Although Tang Ao had yet to fully refine the seals on the primordial sacred heavenly bow, using it to kill off the gray-furred monster was more than enough. However, Tang Ao was a bit doubtful that he could pull the primordial sacred heavenly bow in his current state. Just as Tang Ao was thinking, another beast roar came from afar. This beast roar was very familiar to Tang Ao. It was the gray-furred monster's roar. Tang Ao sent out his soul remembrance and indeed saw a group of martial artists and another gray-furred monster fighting as they escaped towards this place. Seeing this scene, Tang Ao couldn't help but bitterly smile. These people could have escaped anywhere, but they just had to escape to this place. Luckily, there was a body-refining Realm 6th level martial artist who was slightly stronger. Although he could not kill the gray fur monster, under his control, the gray fur monster could not severely injure the others. Miss, it's not good. There's also a gray-furred monster here. After a few people sneaked over, a sharp-eyed warrior immediately discovered the situation. The gray-furred monster that was chasing after Tang Ao also saw the gray-furred monster opposite Tang Ao. Immediately, the gray-furred monster howled a few times into the sky, as if it was communicating with something. After the gray-furred monster received the message, it immediately ignored Tang Ao and charged towards the group of people. This scene caused Tang Ao to be astonished. However, Tang Ao still used his heavenly extreme pupils to investigate the group of people. Immediately, Tang Ao discovered that in the middle of the group of people was a rather pretty young girl. At this moment, the young girl was holding a chubby little demon beast. The instant he saw this demon beast, Tang Ao was secretly shocked because Tang Ao recognized this demon beast. It was an extremely rare frost snow dog. At this moment, the frost snow dog was sleeping soundly in the young girl's arms, not at all aware of the situation in the outside world. After thinking for a moment, Tang Ao understood that these massive gray-furred monsters were clearly protecting the frost snow dog. Now that the frost snow dog's young had been stolen, the gray-furred monster had chased after it. Thinking about this, Tang Ao even began to suspect that this group of people had caused the beast tide this time. Because this group of people had stolen the frost snow dog's young from Evergreen Valley, the Long Green Valley's demonic beast had gone berserk. As Tang Ao was thinking about this, the body-refining Realm 6th level martial artist among the group of people said to Tang Ao, "Brother, we are from the Fog Moon Union. We can be considered friends with your Qing Yun Union. Moreover, this is Qing Yun Union's territory. Why don't you summon the elites of the Qing Yun Union, and we can work together to kill this gray-furred monster?" Chapter 1253. If it was anyone else, they might have already fallen for it. However, Tang Ao's mind was very sharp. It was impossible for Tang Ao to be fooled by such a simple trick. After thinking for a moment, Tang Ao said bitterly, "The base of our Qing Yun Union has also been attacked by a beast wave. All the experts of the Qing Yun Union are there. Even if we send a message now, it will take a long time for them to arrive." There were 9 people in this group from the Misty Moon Union. Apart from the 6th level body, refining realm martial artist, the others were all at the 5th level. Just now, they had only dealt with one gray-furred monster with ease. If they didn't care about their own injuries, it wasn't impossible for them to kill that gray-furred monster with all their strength. But now that there was another gray-furred monster, the 9 of them didn't have the strength to deal with it. Elder Wong, what do we do now? If the Qingyun Union doesn't have any experts coming to support us, then there's no point in us escaping to Qingyun village. Ning Lanlan said anxiously after hearing Tang Ao's words. Although Ning Lanlan looked like an innocent girl, she clearly wasn't as pure and kind as a girl. Even at this moment, Ning Lanlan was thinking about how to escape the pursuit of the gray-furred monster. She didn't consider at all what kind of disaster they would bring to Qingyun village by attracting the gray-furred monster to this village. After Ning Lanlan asked, Elder Wong was silent for a moment. But after thinking for a moment, Elder Wong's eyes suddenly flashed and he said, "Don't listen to this kid's lies. Qingyun village is the only village in the Qingyun Union. Many of the martial artists of the Qingyun Union who can no longer fight and those who can't cultivate are arranged here. And with just the strength of the martial artists left behind in Qingyun village, it's impossible for them to last so long under the beast wave. The Qingyun Union definitely has experts coming, but they're not here right now." Then why did this person say that the Qingyun Union didn't have experts coming? Ning Lanlan's eyes flashed, and she looked coldly at Tang Ao. "Humph." Elder Wong laughed coldly, and then said, "This kid is quite sharp. I think he probably guessed that we intentionally lured the gray-furred monster here. We'll fight the gray-furred monster here and wait for a chance to kill this kid. Otherwise, if this gets out, there will be no room for reconciliation between us and the Qingyun Union." Although Tang Ao didn't know what Ning Lanlan and the others were talking about, Tang Ao could guess what they were planning. Sure enough, after discussing with Ning Lanlan, Wang Hongyi shouted at Tang Ao, "Little brother, our Misty Moon Union and Qingyun Union have always been on good terms. This time, when Qingyun Village encountered the beast tide, we are also duty-bound. Since we happened to pass by and saw it, we'll help our friends from the Qingyun Union to resist the beast wave." Hearing Wang Hongyi's words, Tang Ao sneered in his heart. The beast wave this time was most likely related to Wang Hongyi and the others. But now Wang Hongyi said that he would help Qingyun village resist the beast wave. Moreover, Tang Ao could see that the gray-furred monster was chasing after Wang Hongyi and the others because of the frost snow dog. Therefore, if Wang Hongyi and others left Qingyun village at this time, other monster beasts might not be able to say, but the gray-hair monster would definitely chase after them. When Tang Ao saw that Wang Hongyi and the others had no intention of leaving, he knew that he was in danger. Just now, Tang Ao had already said everything, but they still didn't leave. This meant that Wang Hongyi also saw that Tang Ao was lying and knew that Tang Ao knew the reason for the beast wave. Chapter 1254. I'm Wuhan. How should I address you, friend? The person who walked towards Tang Ao was a handsome young man with oily hair and a powdered face. If not for the fact that his aura was too feminine, his appearance would have been very handsome. However, his aura was very chaotic, and it exuded a sinister aura. Before one even got close, one would feel uncomfortable. Brother Wuhan, why aren't you helping to deal with the gray-furred monster? Why are you looking for this Tang? Although Tang Ao knew that this person wasn't friendly, he had no intention of striking first. Wuhan was at the peak of the 5th level of the body refining realm, while Tang Ao was only at the initial stage of the 5th level of the body refining realm. However, Tang Ao really didn't think much of this Wuhan. I wouldn't dare to give you pointers. Wuhan is here to exchange a few moves with Brother Tang. Wuhan could tell that Tang Ao was very weak at this moment. Therefore, Wuhan pondered for a moment before asking, "If I'm not wrong, the person who blocked the gray-furred monster just now was Brother Tang Ao. Brother Tang Ao was able to fight with the gray-furred monster head-on at the initial stage of the 5th level of the body refining realm. Impressive, impressive." As Wuhan spoke, he raised both his hands and cupped his fist towards Tang Ao. However, at the instant he raised both his hands, Wuhan pulled out 2 flexible swords from his sleeves and thrust them towards Tang Ao's heart and throat. At such a close distance, if it was someone else, they would definitely have fallen for Wuhan's tricks. In fact, Wuhan had indeed killed countless martial artists with the sword in his sleeve. Some of these martial artists were nameless, while others were powerful martial artists who had been famous for a long time. There were many who were weaker than Wuhan, but there were also many who were stronger than him. Until now, Wuhan had yet to meet someone who could dodge his sleeves. Not only were his sleeves unexpected, but they were also unpredictable and incomparably fast. With just a sword hum, Tang Ao felt a pain in his chest and throat at the same time. However, Tang Ao's throat and chest only had a faint trail of blood. Of course, this wasn't because Wuhan didn't wish to kill Tang Ao, but because the two swords in Wuhan's hands had been blocked by Tang Ao's battle Sagebone Life Soul. It wasn't that Wuhan didn't think that there would be a day when his sleeve sword would fail. It was just that Wuhan didn't expect such a situation to occur. In that instant, his sleeve sword had already struck Tang Ao. However, after leaving a faint bloody mark on Tang Ao's body, it was blocked by the battle Sagebone Life Soul that suddenly appeared on Tang Ao's body. After his attack missed, Wuhan immediately leaped into the air and retreated to a place that was 3 feet away from Tang Ao. So far, a total of 1,979 martial artists have died under my sleeve sword. Tang Ao was lucky and did not become one of the 1,980. But even so, Brother Tang Ao will most likely have to stay here today. Although Tang Ao's battle Sagebone Life Soul had exceeded Wuhan's expectations, Wuhan seemed to be very confident in his own strength. Tang Ao had always felt that Wuhan was very sinister. After hearing Wuhan's words, Tang Ao only gave a faint smile. However, Tang Ao soon realized that there wasn't much to it. Wuhan's two swords seemed to have some kind of poison on them. At that moment, Tang Ao's vision was a little blurry. I see. Just now, Tang Ao was still wondering why Wuhan was so confident. Now that he realized that he had been poisoned, Tang Ao also understood where Wuhan's confidence came from. However, according to Tang Ao's thoughts, although there were many times when it came to using poison to achieve a surprising victory, it was a sign of a warrior's lack of confidence in their own strength if they smeared poison on their weapons. Chapter 1255. The illusory flower poison needed to accumulate in a warrior's body continuously. Once it accumulated to a sufficient amount, it could cause a warrior to hallucinate. However, the poison on Wuhan's flexible sword was different. Once it entered the bloodstream, a warrior would instantly be affected. After being poisoned, they would immediately see hallucinations and their consciousness would gradually turn blurry. The most terrifying thing was that the illusory flower poison could be expended using essence. No matter how deeply poisoned one could use essence to neutralize the illusory flower poison. However, Wuhan's poison could not do so. If not for Tang Ao possessing the Jadebone Life Soul, he might have really died in Wuhan's hands. Furthermore, even if Tang Ao possessed the Jadebone Life Soul, Tang Ao's current condition was not optimistic. Due to the consecutive battles with the Poison Feather Monster and the Gray-Furred Monster, Tang Ao did not have much essence left in his body. Furthermore, Tang Ao did not dare to use all his remaining essence to activate the Jadebone Life Soul. This was because Wuhan was still eyeing him covetously. After pondering for a moment, Tang Ao chuckled. Brother Wuhan's poison is indeed powerful. I shall take my leave. After saying that, Tang Ao leaped and fled into the distance. How could Wuhan let Tang Ao go? Hence, after Tang Ao fled, Wuhan chased after him without a second thought. Now that Tang Ao had been poisoned by his illusory flower poison, he was at his weakest. If what he said was right, then Tang Ao was a warrior who could contend with the Gray-Furred Monster. He had to take advantage of such a powerful opponent while he was down to take his life. Otherwise, once Tang Ao recovered, it would be hard to say who would emerge victorious. Furthermore, under normal circumstances, after being poisoned by his illusory flower poison, a warrior would immediately experience dizziness and lose their ability to fight. However, Not only did Tang Ao not lose his ability to fight, he did not even show any abnormalities. If Tang Ao had not been in a hurry to escape, Wu Han would have suspected that Tang Ao had not been poisoned at all. But now, although Wu Han was sure that Tang Ao was poisoned, Tang Ao still acted as if he wasn't poisoned. There was no sign of poisoning on Tang Ao's body. Tang Ao had been imprisoned in the hidden dragon crypt for some time, but Tang Ao still didn't expect the area of the hidden dragon crypt to be so large. Since he was running for his life, Tang Ao didn't choose the path he was familiar with. Instead, he ran and flew randomly. But even so, Tang Ao had been running for half an hour, but there was still nothing in front of him, as if there was no end. The poison is almost neutralized. After arriving in front of another dense forest, Tang Ao suddenly stopped. After Tang Ao's external injuries recovered, the 9-dragon Thearka's J-body constantly absorbed the surrounding primordial energy to carry out the spiritual cycle. Along the way, the poison in Tang Ao's body had been completely refined by the J-bone vitality life soul. The primordial energy that Tang Ao had expended had basically been replenished. At that moment, although Tang Ao wasn't at his peak, it shouldn't be a problem for him to deal with Wu Han. However, just as Tang Ao stopped in the dense forest, a figure happened to walk out of it. Upon seeing this person, Tang Ao's expression turned cold. Tang Ming. Tang Ao was slightly alarmed when he saw Tang Ao. The last time he tried to sneak an attack on Qi Yang, he had failed and ended up getting himself into trouble. During this period of time, he had been pursued by the lunatic Qi Yang. He had no choice but to leave Qin Yun's encampment and come to this place. If it weren't for the monthly cultivation resources, Tang Ming wouldn't have bothered coming out. To Tang Ming's surprise, he saw Tang Ao the moment he came out. How did you find this place? No, you must have been chased by someone and fled here. Chapter 1256. Brother Tang Ming, you are here too? After seeing Tang Ming, Wu Han's face lit up. Just now, Tang Ao had taken the initiative to stop and wait for him. Back then, Wu Han had been hesitating on whether or not he should fight Tang Ao. Now, however, after seeing Tang Ming, Wu Han's mood became much better. The warriors in the hidden dragon caves were people who wouldn't get up unless there were benefits. This was especially true for Tang Ming. As long as they gave him enough benefits, it wouldn't be difficult for Tang Ming to pretend he didn't see anything. Brother Wu Han, are you chasing after this person? This person stole 5 bottles of middle-grade vitality augmenting pills from me a few days ago. I will help you capture this person, but I will have to take back the vitality augmenting pills he has, Tang Ming said to Wu Han after glancing at Tang Ao. Wu Han was just thinking about how to make Tang Ming stand by and watch. He didn't expect that Tang Ming would not just stand by and watch. Instead, he was prepared to help. Wu Han was overjoyed. As for the vitality augmenting pills on Tang Ao, Wu Han only thought about it for a moment before he gave up on the idea. As long as he could bring the Frost Snow Dog back to let it bleed, he would have plenty of vitality augmenting pills. Before bringing the Frost Snow Dog back to the Misty Moon Alliance, it was most important that nothing went wrong. Tang Ao knew the reason for the beast tide and saw the Frost Snow Dog. Therefore, Tang Ao had to die. After coming to an agreement with Wu Han, Tang Ming looked at Tang Ao and said indifferently, Tang Ao, we are both members of the Qin Yun Alliance. I won't make things difficult for you. Just end your own life. His eyes were cold and devoid of any anger. It was as if the moment he said that, Tang Ao was already a dead man. Are you very confident? Tang Ao didn't get angry at Tang Ming's cold words. Instead, he asked in a relaxed manner. His tone was gentle, as if he was talking to a friend. I shouldn't be confident. Tang Ming took out a folding fan. This folding fan was his weapon. He had used this folding fan to sneak attack Qi Yang previously. It doesn't seem good to be too confident. Tang Ao's expression was still very relaxed, and there was even a hint of boredom in this relaxed expression. After sensing Tang Ao's emotions, Tang Ming fell silent. After a while, he suddenly raised his head and said, Since that's the case, I'll show you my confidence. Let's see who else will save you this time. I don't know who will save me, but I do know that no one can save you this time. Tang Ao had long placed Tang Ming on his must-kill list. During the duel between Su Muyun and Qi Yang, Tang Ming had ambushed Qi Yang at a crucial moment. If Su Muyun had not stepped in to save him, Qi Yang would have died a long time ago. After Su Muyun tried to save him, Su Muyun was also severely injured by Qi Yang. In addition to the matter of Tang Ming trying to snatch the essence-cultivating pill from him at the beginning and helping an outsider deal with him this time, Tang Ming had already offended Tang Ao 3 times. The first 2 times, Tang Ao had not recovered from his serious injuries and could not do anything to him. However, this time, it was probably impossible for Tang Ming to leave even if he wanted to. When Tang Ming took the initiative to attack, the aura on Tang Ao's body also suddenly changed. The aura on Tang Ao's body, which had been extremely weak earlier, instantly surged. In an instant, the aura on Tang Ao's body reached the early stage of the 5th stage of the body, refining realm. Although it was only the early stage of the 5th stage of the body, refining realm, it gave off a very special feeling. Tang Ming and Wu Han had seen many martial artists at the 5th stage of the body, refining realm. In fact, they had even come from this level themselves. Therefore, they could sense that the aura on Tang Ao's body was very thick and smooth. Chapter 1257. The edge of the folding fan was thinner than the blade, but it was also sharper than the blade. Before the folding fan reached Tang Ao, a sharp aura gushed over. A lock of Tang Ao's long hair was cut off by this sharp aura. At first, Wu Han thought that Tang Ming was up to something. Now that he saw Tang Ming mercilessly attacking with all his might, Wu Han felt at ease. However, Wu Han had another thought in his mind. How many essence-fostering pills did Tang Ao have? Otherwise, why would Tang Ming be so anxious to kill Tang Ao? In reality, Wu Han was wrong this time. Right now, Tang Ming had been chased by Qi Yang for too long and had nowhere to vent his anger. Therefore, he vented it on Tang Ao. However, Tang Ming's reputation had made Wu Han certain that Tang Ming was someone who wouldn't do anything without benefits. Therefore, while Wu Han was attacking, he was also secretly paying attention to Tang Ming. Although Tang Ao was a little strange, in Wu Han's opinion, Tang Ao was much easier to deal with than Tang Ming. Therefore, when he had the chance, he had to take down Tang Ming at the first instance. Moreover, Tang Ming had been in the dragon's subduing cave for quite some time and was very cunning. As long as Wu Han could kill Tang Ming, he would definitely be satisfied with the good stuff on Tang Ming. At the thought of this, Wu Han's 2 swords became even more arrogant. Wu Han's sword technique was strange to begin with. Now that Wu Han's attacks were completely out of the ordinary, Tang Ming looked even stranger. However, Tang Ming was clearly overwhelmed by anger. Otherwise, he would have been able to understand Wu Han's thoughts even if he couldn't see through them. Facing the attacks of the two, Tang Ao was also at a loss. Tang Ming was getting more and more anxious as he fought. It was as though he couldn't wait to end his life. Meanwhile, Wu Han's 2 swords were getting more and more chaotic. It was as though the more chaotic his sword technique was, the stronger it was. Even so, it was still a little strenuous for Tang Ao to face the 2 of them at the same time. After all, Tang Ao's current cultivation was only at the beginning stage of the 5th stage of the body, refining realm. Meanwhile, these 2 fellas were at the peak of the 5th stage of the body, refining realm. Haha, since the 3 of you are fighting so excitedly, let me join in too. While the 3 of them were fighting, Hai Fuyuan's voice suddenly traveled over from afar. Immediately, Tang Ao felt a gust of wind. Tang Ao swept out with his soul remembrance and found that Hai Fuyuan had indeed sent a kick towards his back. Before the kick even reached him, the wind from the kick caused Tang Ao to feel a chill. However, Tang Ao remained unfazed. The 100-battle spear in his hand danced as he continued to block Wu Han and Tang Ming's swift attacks. Hai Fuyuan was secretly puzzled, but he still had no intention of withdrawing. In the blink of an eye, Hai Fuyuan's incomparably tyrannical leg had already arrived behind Tang Ao and was about to break Tang Ao's bones. But at this moment, Tang Ao, who was motionless a moment ago, suddenly lowered his body and held the spear in his hand horizontally across his back. Tang Ming's fan hit empty air, while Wu Han's two swords slashed onto Tang Ao's spear. However, Hai Fuyuan's ferocious kick landed squarely on Tang Ming's chest. Tang Ming wasn't prepared for this kick and was sent flying by Hai Fuyuan. "Brother Tang Ming, this is a misunderstanding." Hai Fuyuan immediately explained when he saw this. However, after Tang Ming was kicked, he was twitching on the ground. Occasionally, he would spit out a mouthful of blood. This shocked Hai Fuyuan. His abilities were about the same as Tang Ming's. Even if Tang Ming wasn't prepared, he wouldn't end up like this after eating his kick. Chapter 1258. That's not right. After scanning with his soul remembrance, Tang Ao shockingly discovered that Tang Ming's aura was rapidly changing. Currently, Tang Ao's aura was very strange. Tang Ming's skin had also turned blood red. It was as if the blood under Tang Ming's skin was burning. At the same time, Tang Ming's cultivation was rapidly rising. Seeing this, Hai Fuyuan exclaimed, "Evil blood technique. You actually cultivated the evil blood technique." Hearing the term evil blood technique, Tang Ao was very unfamiliar. Tang Ao had never heard of such a technique before. However, seeing Hai Fuyuan's terrified expression, this evil blood technique was clearly a very sinister and vicious technique. Otherwise, Hai Fuyuan wouldn't be so afraid. At this time, Tang Ming also slowly sat up. However, Tang Ao no longer looked like a human. His entire being was like a monster. Tang Ming's entire body was crimson red. His skin was the color of fresh blood. His originally smooth black hair was now like a bunch of lifeless grayish-white withered grass. On top of Tang Ming's head, a bunch of malevolent curved horns grew. Tang Ming's pupils also underwent a huge change. His originally black pupils had completely turned blood red. Fresh blood would occasionally flow out of his eyes and flow down his cheeks. It looked very horrifying. Tang Ming's mouth also protruded with two long and narrow fangs. His entire being had turned into a monster. Moreover, this wasn't the end. Tang Ming's hands were still transforming under the gaze of Tang Ao and the others. In an instant, his hands had turned into a pair of scarlet claws. Even his feet had quickly transformed into the bony claws of a wild beast. Jia, 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 you guys have all seen it. As Tang Ao and the others watched Tang Ming, the transformed Tang Ming let out an ear-piercing laugh. His voice had become sharp and piercing. It was like the sound of nails rubbing against rusty metal. This sound was unforgettable after just hearing it once. No one wanted to hear it again. "Brother Tang Ming, this matter has nothing to do with me. I'll be leaving first." Feeling Tang Ming's powerful aura at the peak of the seventh stage of the body refining realm, Hai Fuyuan's voice trembled as he spoke. "Fatty Z, you should stay." Tang Ming spat out a stream of fiery breath from his mouth. After transforming into this state that was neither a human nor a ghost, Tang Ming's speech became somewhat unclear. Although he couldn't speak clearly, his tone was frightening enough. "The three of us should work together. Cultivating the evil blood technique in the Crouching Dragon Cave is the #1 taboo. The three of us have seen his secret. You definitely think that he will let us leave." Seeing Tang Ming execute the evil blood technique's secret technique, Wu Han's eyes burned with passion. However, Wu Han still suppressed the intense throbbing in his heart and said to Tang Ao and Hai Fuyuan with an unusually calm expression. Tang Ao didn't notice the change in Wu Han's expression, but Tang Ao also knew that Wu Han was right. This kind of secret technique that could allow one's cultivation to skyrocket in an instant would definitely come at a great price. Tang Ao guessed that Tang Ming definitely hadn't completely mastered this secret technique. Therefore, when he was attacked just now, he had unconsciously released this secret technique. "Brother Tang Ming, if you're willing to let me go, I will leave now. I guarantee that I won't tell anyone about this. Even at this moment, Hai Fuyuan didn't have the same boldness as Tang Ao and Wuhan. Martial artists who cultivated the evil blood technique were invincible within the same realm. Chapter 1259. Bam! Tang Ming didn't say a word. His primordial energy surged as the surrounding wind howled. Following that, Tang Ming pounced at Tang Ao like a ferocious tiger leaping into a ravine. After using the evil blood technique, Tang Ming's mind was no longer clear. Even so, Tang Ao was still the person he wanted to kill the most. Against Tang Ming's attack, Tang Ao didn't dare be careless. With a thought, 4 pitch-black chains appeared out of thin air behind Tang Ao. Under Tang Ao's control, the 4 chains trembled and smashed at Tang Ming. The 4 chains were none other than Tang Ao's 10,000 Ghost Lock. However, this time, Tang Ao didn't completely summon the 10,000 Ghost Lock from the underworld. He only summoned a portion of it. Ever since Tang Ao used the 10,000 Ghost Lock to subdue the Poison Plume, Tang Ao realized that the aura of the underworld seemed to be able to nurture the 10,000 Ghost Lock. Therefore, Tang Ao sent the 10,000 Ghost Lock into the underworld to nurture it. At that moment, Tang Ao summoned the 10,000 Ghost Lock from the underworld. Tang Ao could clearly sense that the 10,000 Ghost Lock didn't need to expend his primordial energy at all. Furthermore, the 10,000 Ghost Lock's might was much stronger than before. Tang Ao could even sense that the 10,000 Ghost Lock had already recovered to its peak state. However, due to the limitations of his cultivation level, he was unable to unleash its full strength. In other words, among Tang Ao's many life souls, the strongest life soul wasn't the 29 firmament life souls, but the 21 firmament 10,000 Ghost Lock. As the other life souls were closely connected to Tang Ao's soul C, now that Tang Ao's soul C was damaged, these life souls were also extremely weak. Just like the Battle Sage Bone life soul, the Battle Sage Bone life soul's grade had already reached the 29th firmament, but due to Tang Ao's damaged soul C, the Battle Sage Bone life soul could only produce strength at the 9th firmament. If the Battle Saint Bone life soul could exert its peak strength, Tang Ao would only need to hide inside the Battle Saint Bone life soul. Even if all the warriors of the Flying Star continent lined up to fight for hundreds of years, they would not be able to do anything to Tang Ao. Now, Tang Ao was really looking forward to placing the Battle Sage Bone life soul in the underworld to nourish it. He just didn't know if the Battle Sage Bone life soul could be placed in the underworld like the Myriad Ghost Soul Lock. When Tang Ming made a move against Tang Ao, Wuhan really made a move. At the instant Tang Ming was restrained by Tang Ao's Myriad Ghost Soul Lock, Wuhan took the opportunity to flash behind Tang Ming. Following that, the 2 swords in his hands stabbed at Tang Ming's back with extreme ferocity. However, after Tang Ming mutated into a monster, his body was covered in WRM-like scales. Therefore, the 2 swords in Wuhan's hands only produced a series of sparks behind Tang Ming's back. They didn't cause any substantial damage to Tang Ming. Hai Fuyuan had been clamoring to leave, but when he really made a move, he didn't dawdle at all. Almost at the instant Wuhan made a move, a gigantic axe that was half the height of a person appeared in Hai Fuyuan's hands. After Hai Fuyuan swung the gigantic axe in a circular motion, he slashed at Tang Ming's left leg. Although he didn't manage to cleave off Tang Ao's left leg, it left a bloody wound on it, causing Tang Ming to cry out in pain. Upon seeing this scene, Tang Ao's eyes narrowed as he activated Skypolarity Eyes and probed Hai Fuyuan's gigantic axe. With just a glance, Tang Ao sighed inwardly. Fatty Hai's luck was really not bad. Right now, the ordinary-looking gigantic axe in Hai Fuyuan's hands was impressively a broken immortal artifact. However, Fatty Hai was very cunning. After discovering the extraordinariness of the broken axe, Fatty Hai had reforged the gigantic axe. Chapter 1260. Roar. After his thigh was cut by Fatty Hai's axe, Tang Ming roared to the sky. He struggled violently. Although Tang Ao's Thousand Ghost Lock was powerful, Tang Ao was only at body refining realm level 5. The difference between them was too great. Hence, under Tang Ming's intense struggle, the Thousand Ghost Lock was gradually broken. "If the two of you don't show me your true abilities, I'm leaving," Fatty Hai shouted immediately after seeing Tang Ming break free from Tang Ao's Thousand Ghost Lock. After hearing Fatty Hai's words, Tang Ao lamented in his heart. Fatty Hai hadn't even used his full strength, yet he was blaming Wu Han and himself. However, Tang Ao was still a little suspicious. Wu Han and Tang Ming shouldn't have any deep hatred before, but after Tang Ming transformed, Wu Han seemed to be very excited. In the battle just now, Tang Ao had used 50% of his strength. Fatty Hai had also used almost 50% of his strength. However, Wu Han had used at least 70% of his strength. It was just like when they fought not long ago, except that Wu Han had to kill him. Now, he clearly had no reason to fight Tang Ming to the death. Although he was suspicious, Tang Ao didn't dare to be careless against Tang Ming, who had used the evil blood technique. Moreover, the evil blood technique was listed as the #1 taboo in the Hidden Dragon Crypt. After Tang Ming broke free from the Thousand Ghost Lock, Tang Ao didn't plan to use the Thousand Ghost Lock to trap Tang Ming again. With a thought, the Green Lotus Sword Soul appeared behind Tang Ao. At this moment, Tang Ming was too violent. His attacks were also very overbearing. Right now, Tang Ao was only at the early stage of the 5th stage of the body, refining realm. Fighting Tang Ming, who was at the peak of the 7th stage of the body, refining realm, head-on was clearly very irrational and dangerous. Therefore, Tang Ao decided to use the Green Lotus Sword Soul to fight Tang Ming. Tang Ao thought for a while. Among the techniques he could use now, only the Netherworld Sword Chi and the Primordial Sacred Heavenly Bow could injure Tang Ming. But whether it was the Primordial Sacred Sky Bow or the Netherworld Sword, they were not things that Tang Ao could afford right now. After using it, Tang Ao's essence would be instantly drained. He would not be able to fight for a short period of time. Right now, Hai Fuyuan and Wu Han, who were fighting alongside Tang Ao, were not Tang Ao's friends. In fact, they were enemies. They had only joined forces temporarily to deal with Tang Ming, who was too evil and powerful. In this kind of situation, Tang Ao really did not dare to use the Primordial Sacred Heavenly Bow and the Netherworld Sword. Roar! 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 As time passed, Tang Ming's eyes became increasingly bloodshot, and he became increasingly berserk. Tang Ao controlled the Green Lotus Sword Soul, wanting to pierce Tang Ming's eyes. At that moment, Tang Ao's body was covered in a layer of hard scales. Earlier, Tang Ao's attacks had been ineffective. Thus, Tang Ao had targeted the weakest part of Tang Ming's body. Although Tang Ming had lost his rationality, he still possessed the instincts of a wild beast. Every time Tang Ao's Green Lotus Sword pierced towards his eyes, Tang Ming would always be able to dodge. Even if he could not dodge, he would raise his arm to block. At that moment, the Green Lotus Sword's might was less than 10%. In addition, the scales on Tang Ming's body were incomparably thick. When Tang Ao's Green Lotus Sword struck Tang Ming's arm, it was completely ineffective. Moreover, Tang Ao realized that Tang Ming's aura was no longer as chaotic as before. Chapter 1261. In the instant that Tang Ao dodged, a scarlet sharp claw swiped at Tang Ao. In an instant, an evil gust of wind blew and blood surged. Although Tang Ao had dodged in advance, he could only watch as Tang Ming's ferocious sharp claw slammed into his chest. Puchi! Tang Ao spat out a mouthful of blood. He was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. The towering trees behind Tang Ao were smashed and broken by Tang Ao. Only then did Tang Ao release the terrifying force from his body. Although Tang Ao had summoned the Battle Sage Bone Life soul to protect himself, Tang Ao still felt as if his internal organs were on fire. His entire body was scorching hot. Tang Ming's attack just now had clearly injured Tang Ao badly. When Hai Fuyuan saw that Tang Ao was injured, his fat body actually climbed up with abnormal agility. Without saying anything, he took huge strides and escaped into the forest. Although he had a sturdy body, he wasn't slow when escaping. If he didn't use the wind, thunder, dark cloud, Tang Ao felt that he might not be able to catch up to Fatty Hai. After watching for a while, Tang Ao realized that something was wrong. Or rather, it wasn't that Fatty Hai's speed was too fast, but that the straw sandals on his feet were unusual. Although that pair of straw sandals wasn't an immortal artifact, it was a broken grade 4 spiritual artifact. Seeing this, Tang Ao was a little speechless. This Fatty Hai's weapon was a broken immortal artifact, and his shoes were a broken grade 4 spiritual artifact. Why did he look like a trash collector? However, Tang Ao's gaze didn't linger on Fatty Hai for long. After Fatty Hai escaped and Tang Ao was injured, Wu Han and Tang Ming became a one-on-one battle. At this time, Tang Ao was surprised to discover that Wu Han's aura had unknowingly risen to the pinnacle of the body-refining realm level 6. Although he was still a small level lower than Tang Ming, he was able to contend with Tang Ming with his abnormal agility. However, for some reason, Tang Ao saw that Wu Han's blood qi was surging. He didn't know if he had used some secret technique or something had happened. However, at this time, Tang Ao saw Wu Han taking out a handful of silver powder. The instant Tang Ming dashed toward him, Wu Han scattered the silver powder with a wave of his hand and fled in another direction. Tang Ming, who had rushed towards Wu Han, seemed to be subconsciously afraid of the silver powder and didn't dare to chase after Wu Han anymore. When Tang Ao saw this, he did not dare to stay any longer. He reached out and grabbed a handful of the silver powder floating in the air. Then, he immediately fled in another direction. However, it was already too late for Tang Ao. Fatty Hai had already disappeared. Tang Ming obviously wouldn't chase after him. Although Tang Ming had lost his rationality after mutating, Tang Ming seemed to be instinctively afraid of this kind of thing. Hence, Tang Ming didn't dare to chase after Wu Han. With that, Tang Ao became his only choice. As expected, before Tang Ao could fly far, he heard the sound of wind coming from behind him. Scanning with his soul remembrance, he saw that Tang Ming was chasing after him crazily. Seeing Tang Ao's astonishing speed, Tang Ao groaned in his heart. Chapter 1262. Bam! After Tang Ao dodged it, the blood-colored ball of light blasted a few towering trees in front of Tang Ao into pieces. Instantly, dust flew as wood chips flew everywhere. The aftermath of the explosion also sent Tang Ao flying backward. He slid a long distance on the ground before Tang Ao stabilized his body. Just as Tang Ao stabilized his body, Tang Ming immediately pounced at Tang Ao like a wild beast. Previously, Tang Ao had experienced Tang Ming's prowess. At that moment, Tang Ao naturally didn't dare clash head-on with Tang Ming. Although Tang Ao didn't know much about the evil blood art, it was listed as the #1 taboo in the Hidden Dragon Catacombs. There was indeed something extraordinary about it. After Tang Ming used the evil blood art, he possessed combat instincts that could almost match a demon beast. Back when Tang Ao and company had joined forces to deal with Tang Ming, Tang Ao and company had almost no chance to sneak an attack on Tang Ming. After the mutation, Tang Ming's perception was terrifyingly sharp. Apart from his perception, the thick layer of scales on Tang Ming's body had a defense that was almost comparable to Tang Ao's Battle Sage Bone Life Soul. However, the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul could constantly grow with Tang Ao's cultivation level. At the present stage, the layer of scales on Tang Ming's body was in no way weaker than Tang Ao's Battle Sage Bone Life Soul. However, compared to Tang Ao's Battle Sage Bone Life Soul, Tang Ming's scales were also lacking. Tang Ao's Battle Sage Bone Life Soul could transform as he wished, but Tang Ao's scales didn't have such an effect. Of course, apart from the powerful defense brought about by the scales, Tang Ming's speed had also increased significantly after the mutation. His offensive strength was also extremely terrifying. Bam! Tang Ming charged in front of Tang Ao as his primordial energy surged. He leaped up and clawed at Tang Ao with the might of MT Tai. These sharp claws were clearly formed from Tang Ming's hands. However, at this moment, Tang Ao could sense that these sharp claws were even harder than steel. That cold and dense aura also revealed its sharpness. Tang Ao, who was below, had a solemn expression on his face. Even so, Tang Ao seemed to have the imposing manner of Mount Tai pressing down on him. Countless golden runes jumped up from Tang Ao's body as Tang Ao released the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul. The Battle Sage Bone Life Soul was like a layer of armor, wrapping around Tang Ao tightly. After summoning the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul, a lotus flower appeared behind Tang Ao. It spun in the air and transformed into 7 identical azure lotus swords. The green lotus sword slowly rotated around Tang Ao, which was extremely beautiful. But under this beauty, there was also a fatal killing intent. Go! At the instant Tang Ming's attack arrived, Tang Ao performed hand seals. Under the control of his psyche, the 7 azure lotus sword souls instantly flew in front of Tang Ao. After drawing a circle in the air, the 7 azure lotus swords transformed into 7 streams of light and shot at Tang Ming. The 7 streams of light constantly intersected along the way and finally merged into one. Like a meteor streaking across the sky, the green meteor collided with Tang Ming's sharp claws. Bam! Rumble! At the instant of the collision, the 2 powerful primordial energies stirred up ripples in the air. The surrounding trees were all snapped in half, and the surrounding soil and rocks were swept in all directions as though they had encountered a storm. For a moment, yellow sand danced and rocks fell like rain. After this attack, Tang Ao stood on the spot, panting. Chapter 1263. In his previous life, Tang Ao had been a peak-level astral-reaching realm peerless demon lord. On the path of cultivation, he had naturally experienced countless life and death situations. However, under the baptism of life and death, Tang Ao did not treat life and death lightly. Instead, he became more and more cautious. 2 lifetimes of cultivation experience had taught Tang Ao that regardless of the situation, the more cautious one was, the greater the chance of survival. Therefore, although he knew that his chances of winning against Tang Ming alone were not high, Tang Ao was still cautious. Although the odds of victory were low, it did not mean that there was no chance of victory. Even a tiger would take a nap, let alone Tang Ming. Moreover, Tang Ming did not have any absolute pressure in front of Tang Ao. The reason why Tang Ming was so powerful was because he had used a secret skill and not because of his own abilities. Since it was a secret skill, there would definitely be a time limit. Moreover, with such a powerful secret skill, the side effects would definitely be terrifying as well. As long as Tang Ao could stall Tang Ming for a while and wait for the effects of the evil blood art secret skill to wear off, it would not be easy for Tang Ming to escape even if he wanted to. However, Tang Ao was a bit hesitant as to whether or not he should take this risk. This was because Tang Ao did not know much about the evil blood art. In Tang Ao's memory, there were many secret skills that could increase a martial artist's cultivation in an instant. However, these secret skills only lasted for a short time, and the damage to the martial artist was relatively small. There were also some secret skills that lasted for a very long time and could be used continuously for days. Of course, the price of these secret skills was the death of the martial artist. Therefore, before confirming what kind of secret skill the evil blood art belonged to, it would be very dangerous for Tang Ao to stay and fight with Tang Ming. Moreover, this was not a normal place, but the dragon prison caves where the martial artists were imprisoned. In the dragon subduing crypt, so martial artists could all be considered as enemies. The fewer martial artists there were, the richer the yuan qi in the dragon prison would be, and the smaller the competition for treasures in the Evergreen Valley would be. Therefore, once Tang Ao fell into a bitter battle with Tang Ming, it would be easy for other martial artists to take advantage of him. Furthermore, with Tang Ao's current state, he really did not have the capital to fight Tang Ming head-on. Tang Ao estimated that even if he were to use a secret technique to burn his Yuan Qi to fight Tang Ming, he would only be able to last for 5 minutes at best. However, it was unknown how much longer Tang Ming could fight. Although all of this was complicated, it actually happened in a flash. Moreover, after coming to the conclusion that he couldn't win, Tang Ao immediately wanted to escape again. However, the mutated Tang Ming was too powerful. The moment Tang Ao made his decision, Tang Ming stared at the storm created by the collision and charged at Tang Ao once again. Get lost! At that moment, Tang Ao did not wish to get entangled with Tang Ming. However, Tang Ming's attacks were too ferocious. Tang Ao could not escape even if he wanted to. Tang Ao released the Azure Lotus Sword Soul, which revolved around Tang Ming and slashed out. At the same time, Tang Ao wielded the 100 Battle Spear Soul, which dissolved Tang Ming's attacks one by one. Tang Ao was a little anxious. If this went on, he wouldn't be able to afford it. Bam! Just as Tang Ao blocked Tang Ming's claw, Tang Ao's other claw smashed onto Tang Ao's 100 Battle Spear Soul in a domineering manner. The terrifying force caused the 100 Battle Spear Soul to flicker. Finally, it could not sustain itself and returned to Tang Ao's body. The instant the 100 Battle Spear Soul disappeared, Tang Ao released the Battle Sagebone Life Soul in time. Chapter 1264. Tang Ao vaguely recalled that this woman was called Su Hongyi. She was one of the people in charge of the dragon prison castle in the hidden dragon crypt. After seeing this woman, Tang Ao hesitated for a moment before immediately flying in the direction she was heading. Tang Ming was currently at the 7th stage of the body tempering realm. It was too strenuous for Tang Ao to deal with him. However, this Su Hongyi was a warrior at the 9th stage of the body tempering realm. It was clearly not a problem for her to deal with Tang Ming. However, when Tang Ao saw that she was in a hurry, it was as though she had something urgent to attend to. Hence, Tang Ao did not dare to be certain that Su Hongyi would not stop to deal with Tang Ming. Even so, Tang Ao still wanted to lure Tang Ming over. Even if Su Hongyi tried to stop him, Tang Ao would still be able to easily escape from Tang Ming. Of course, if Su Hongyi remained completely indifferent, Tang Ao would not be completely helpless. Although it was very strenuous for Tang Ao to summon the Wind Thunder Dark Cloud, and his Yuan Qi would be quickly depleted after summoning it. However, when he was left with no other choice, Tang Ao could only summon the Wind Thunder Dark Cloud to escape. As Tang Ao flew in Su Hongyi's direction, Su Hongyi quickly discovered Tang Ao. After seeing Tang Ao, Su Hongyi was slightly taken aback. Following that, she saw Tang Ao chasing after Tang Ming. Indeed, someone cultivates the evil blood technique. To Tang Ao's surprise, Su Hongyi ignored Tang Ao the moment she saw Tang Ming. 2 white chains flew out of her hands like 2 agile snakes. Countless scarlet petals danced around the chains. They looked extremely slow, but their speed was astonishingly fast. In just an instant, Su Hongyi's 2 white chains had wrapped around Tang Ming. However, Tang Ao did not stop. Instead, he flew far away. When she saw Tang Ao escape, Su Hongyi's eyes flashed with contempt. Although a portion of the warriors imprisoned in the hidden dragon crypt were innocent, most of them deserved it. Tang Ao was a man, yet he had fled in the face of such a situation. Although Su Hongyi did not expect Tang Ao to be of any help, she was still very disappointed when she saw Tang Ao flee. However, Su Hongyi was clearly looking at the problem from the perspective of their gender. She had completely ignored the fact that Tang Ao was at the early stage of the body refining realm. If an ordinary martial artist at the beginning stage of the 5th stage of the body refining realm faced Tang Ming, who was at the peak of the 7th stage of the body refining realm, he would most likely be killed on the spot by Tang Ming's claw. Before Su Hongyi arrived, Tang Ao had been fighting with Tang Ming. If this wasn't the hidden dragon cave, Tang Ao was 90% confident that he could kill Tang Ming if he went all out. It was just that danger lurked everywhere in the hidden dragon cave. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Tang Ao was still unwilling to use this kind of risky tactic. Although Tang Ao had been flying far away, Tang Ao hadn't really escaped. After Tang Ao flew out of the range of Su Hongyi's soul remembrance, Tang Ao's figure flashed, and he hid in a forest. This forest was very lush, and after Tang Ao hid in the forest, it was very difficult to find traces of Tang Ao. After observing for a moment, Tang Ao chose a towering tree in the forest where it was easier to observe the battle between Su Hongyi and Tang Ming. Tang Ao sat on a thick branch and concentrated his soul remembrance. He stealthily swept his gaze over the area where Su Hongyi and Tang Ming were fighting. Due to the 9 Dragon Emperor Jade Body, Tang Ao had a soul seed that other warriors did not have. The soul remembrance formed in the soul seed was much stronger than normal soul remembrance. Those with lower cultivation than Tang Ao would not be able to detect Tang Ao's soul remembrance. Although Tang Ao was only at the 5th stage of the body refining realm, when Tang Ao was at his peak, he was at the 1st stage of the life and death realm. Chapter 1265. Although this soul remembrance was very weak, under Tang Ao's powerful senses, this soul remembrance had nowhere to hide. As Tang Ao got closer to the source of this soul remembrance, the soul remembrance became clearer. After discovering this, Tang Ao wasn't happy. Instead, he became even more vigilant. This was because Tang Ao determined that the owner of this soul remembrance was definitely an extremely crafty fellow. Moreover, this person's soul remembrance far surpassed a martial artist of the same realm. However, perhaps his cultivation wasn't as high as Su Hongyi's, so he used this ingenious method that even Tang Ao was surprised. This person was currently outside of Su Hongyi's soul remembrance detection range, but he was using a method that gradually weakened his soul remembrance to increase the range of his soul remembrance detection. Tang Ao chased for a long time, but still couldn't find where this person was hiding. This caused Tang Ao to become even more vigilant. Although Tang Ao's soul remembrance was powerful, Tang Ao was currently restricted by his cultivation. Therefore, after his soul remembrance weakened to this level, it was practically nearing its limit. However, Tang Ao didn't expect that this martial artist, who was secretly spying on Su Hongyi and Tang Ming's fight, would be so cautious. Tang Ao didn't know if other people could sense the range of Su Hongyi's soul remembrance detection, but Tang Ao clearly knew that such a long distance had long since exceeded the range of Su Hongyi's soul remembrance detection. Using Su Hongyi's position as a reference, this person was much further away from Su Hongyi than Tang Ao was from Su Hongyi. Because Tang Ao could clearly sense Su Hongyi's soul remembrance fluctuations, Tang Ao just so happened to stop in an area that Su Hongyi's soul remembrance couldn't detect. However, this person was hiding so far away, causing Tang Ao to be somewhat speechless. As he sensed the slight stabbing pain in his soul sea, Tang Ao knew that he was about to reach his limit. However, what disappointed Tang Ao was that Tang Ao still hadn't discovered who was spying on the battle between Su Hongyi and Tang Ming. Taking a deep breath, Tang Ao decided to go a bit further before retracting his soul remembrance. Since there was someone observing the battle between Su Hongyi and Tang Ming, Tang Ao believed that there was someone observing the battle. As long as the outcome of the battle between Su Hongyi and Tang Ming was determined, the person hiding in the dark would definitely show himself. However, if that was the case, Tang Ao felt that he really had no place to put his old face. He, Tang Ao, was the reincarnation of a dignified demon lord. In this life, he was also a life and death powerhouse. After being stranded on the Flying Star continent, he actually lost to a native martial artist in terms of remembrance. Although Tang Ao admitted that this native martial artist was indeed outstanding in terms of remembrance and was able to think of such an ingenious method, Tang Ao was still extremely displeased. If Tang Ao's soul hadn't been shattered to such an extent, Tang Ao could guarantee that even if he was at the first stage of the body refinement realm, his soul remembrance would still be dozens of streets ahead of him. However, Tang Ao could only think about it. Ever since leaving the Underworld Emperor's secret realm, Tang Ao's shattered soul hadn't recovered. Through a series of experiences, his shattered soul hadn't recovered. Instead, it had become even more shattered. When he thought of this, Tang Ao bitterly laughed in his heart. However, it was at this moment that Tang Ao's soul remembrance finally found a white figure in the distance. The instant he saw this person, Tang Ao was shocked speechless. This was because this person was Wu Han, who had used a silver powder to escape not too long ago. Speaking of the silver powder, Tang Ao took out a jade box from his storage ring. Inside the jade box was a small pinch of silver powder. This silver powder was what Tang Ao had collected when he was escaping. At the time, the situation had been urgent, so Tang Ao hadn't had the time to check it. Now that he saw Wu Han, Tang Ao recalled this matter. Chapter 1266. This was because Tang Ao could sense that the psyche that was spying on Su Hongyi and Tang Ming's battle had been released from a pendant hanging on Wu Han's neck. Could it be an artifact spirit left behind from ancient times? Tang Ao's first thought was that Wu Han might have obtained some kind of heaven-defying treasure like Fatty Hai. However, after observing for a moment, Tang Ao's expression turned solemn. The necklace hanging around Wu Han's neck was indeed a treasure. However, the psyche that was transmitted from the treasure wasn't the artifact spirit's psyche. Instead, it was the psyche of a martial artist. If Tang Ao hadn't guessed wrongly, Wu Han should have at least 2 or more of these pendants hanging on his neck. The use of these mystical pendants was to allow the martial artist who wore them to transmit their psyche through the pendant within a certain range. Tang Ao originally thought that Wu Han was already being cautious enough by hiding so far away. However, after discovering this, Tang Ao realized that even a martial artist from a low-tier continent couldn't be underestimated. Especially before his strength had recovered, such a cunning enemy would definitely be extremely fatal. Fortunately, this person didn't seem to have any intention of dealing with him. Otherwise, Tang Ao wasn't sure if he could escape unscathed. Just as Tang Ao was observing Wu Han with his psyche, a trace of doubt flashed across Wu Han's eyes. This was because Wu Han had vaguely felt a trace of psyche fluctuation just now. After discovering this trace of psyche fluctuation, Wu Han immediately pursued the trace of psyche with the mindset that it was better to believe than not. However, Wu Han's surroundings were completely empty. She couldn't sense anything. When Tang Ao had discovered that it was Wu Han, his state of mind had fluctuated, causing this trace of psyche to leak out. However, Tang Ao didn't retract his psyche immediately. This was because Tang Ao knew that with Wu Han's cultivation, it was impossible for her to discover him in such a situation. However, Tang Ao was also a little depressed. There was obviously an expert behind Wu Han. It was just that because of the water droplet pendant on Wu Han's neck, Tang Ao had no way of knowing who the expert hiding behind Wu Han was. Although Tang Ao didn't have a direct conflict of interest with this group of people, this feeling made Tang Ao very uncomfortable. After thinking for a moment, Tang Ao discreetly left a soul remembrance imprint on Wu Han's pendant. This way, as long as someone else touched Wu Han's strange pendant, Tang Ao's soul remembrance would be attracted to that person. Tang Ao wasn't sure if this method could catch the person behind Wu Han, but right now, Tang Ao's cultivation was limited. Other than this method, Tang Ao didn't know what other methods he could use to catch the person behind Wu Han. Of course, if Tang Ao was able to find some method to recover his strength in the hidden dragon cave, as long as Tang Ao could raise his cultivation to the 9th level of the body, refining realm in a short amount of time, then even if Tang Ao encountered an origin martial realm martial artist from the Flying Star Continent, Tang Ao wouldn't be afraid. Although the 9th level of the body refining realm was only 4 levels higher than Tang Ao's current 5th level. As Tang Ao's cultivation increased, Tang Ao's strength increased explosively. For example, even if Tang Ao used all his strength, he wouldn't necessarily be able to take down Tang Ao after he used the evil blood technique. However, if Tang Ao's cultivation could recover to the peak of the 9th level of the body refining realm, Tang Ao could guarantee that he would be able to blast Tang Ming into pieces with one punch. He wouldn't be like Su Hongyi, who had been probing with Tang Ming for half a day. Chapter 1267. In the battle with Tang Ming just now, Tang Ao knew that Tang Ming was completely relying on his beast-like battle instincts to fight after he lost his rationality. Under such circumstances, apart from fighting Tang Ming head-on, there was no other way. If it had been Tang Ao, he might have been able to use some advanced array formations. However, the array formations of the Flying Star Continent were too backward. At the very least, Tang Ao hadn't seen any martialists on the Flying Star Continent who could use array formations to capture Tang Ming. As Tang Ao continued to understand the Flying Star Continent, Tang Ao became more and more confused. Back when Tang Ao and Chu Xuahan were in the Xidagarba Cemetery, they had used the Space Jade Talisman to cross planes and arrive at the Flying Star Continent. Therefore, Tang Ao guessed that the space between the Flying Star Continent and the Xidagarba Cemetery should be very thin. However, in the area of the Xidagarba Cemetery, be it the beasts or the strange plants, they were all very powerful existences. Compared to the Xidagarba Cemetery, the Flying Star Continent was really weak. It was so weak that there wasn't even any spiritual energy. There was only vitality that was more than 10 times weaker than spiritual energy. However, the existence of an immortal artifact had appeared in such a low-level plane. In a place where the strongest cultivators could only cultivate to the origin martial realm, the appearance of a fragment of an immortal artifact was really unimaginable. Tang Ao knew that although the hidden dragon caves were incomparably vast, the only difference between each place was the density of vitality. There was only one place that was different from all the other places in the Hidden Dragon Caves. That was the Evergreen Valley. Ever since Tang Ao came to the Hidden Dragon Caves, he hadn't had the chance to visit the Evergreen Valley. Just as Tang Ao was thinking, Tang Ao suddenly heard someone talking to Wuhan. The voice also came from the pendant on Wuhan's neck. It was very low and a little hoarse. It was very uncomfortable to listen to. If there's a chance later, kill Su Hongyi. A cold voice came from the pendant on Wuhan's neck. Even Wuhan was startled by this command. It's not impossible, but are you sure there aren't any other experts in the Hidden Dragon Crypt around? Tang Ao was secretly shocked as he listened to their conversation from afar. It must be known that Wuhan was only a 5th-tier body refining realm martial artist on the surface, while Su Hongyi was at the peak of the 9th-tier body refining realm. Even with such a terrifying gap in cultivation, Wuhan did not show the slightest bit of fear when he said that he wanted to get rid of Su Hongyi. Tang Ao could only see an intense self-confidence in his eyes. It was as if Wuhan possessed some sort of technique that allowed him to bypass the 4 layers of suppression and kill Su Hongyi. Don't worry, there isn't anyone within the range of my soul remembrance, the cold voice on the pendant continued. The kid who ran away just now isn't here. Wuhan and Tang Ao had fought before, so she knew that Tang Ao was cunning. According to Wuhan's conjecture, in such a situation, Tang Ao would most likely hide somewhere and wait for an opportunity to make a move. He shouldn't have escaped directly. What was the most important thing in the Hidden Dragon Crypt? Of course, it was cultivation resources. A martial artist who had cultivated the evil blood technique to the 7th-tier body refining realm definitely had a terrifying amount of cultivation resources. Moreover, looking at the battle between Su Hongyi and Tang Ming, It was hard to say who would emerge victorious. In such a situation, Wu Han couldn't think of any reason for Tang Ao to escape. Could it be that Tang Ao was afraid of being chased by Tang Ming, so he immediately escaped when he had the chance? Chapter 1268. Although Tang Ao was very far away from Wu Han, Tang Ao could clearly hear the conversation between Wu Han and the pendant. Tang Ao didn't expect Wu Han to be such a cautious person. Even at such a time, she was still asking about his whereabouts. If Tang Ao was just a normal martial artist, he would naturally have been discovered by the powerful remembrance in Wu Han's pendant. Unfortunately, Tang Ao's remembrance was stronger than the remembrance in Wu Han's pendant. Tang Ao could discover it, but it couldn't discover Tang Ao. Therefore, after Wu Han asked, the pendant hesitated for a moment and said, "Tang Ao is no longer here." After pausing for a moment, the voice continued, "If you see Tang Ao, don't kill him for now. He is useful to me." Hearing this, Tang Ao was shocked again. The person in the pendant actually knew him. Moreover, he had just told Wu Han not to kill him for now. He was useful to him. Tang Ao was somewhat indifferent and speechless. After he came to the Flying Star Continent, he only wanted to recover some strength and leave immediately after finding Chu Xiuhan. He never thought of stirring up trouble. Now, no matter how low-key Tang Ao was, trouble still found him. Because of this, Tang Ao was increasingly worried about Chu Xiuhan's safety. Although Tang Ao's cultivation wasn't strong, he was still a body refining realm level 5 martial artist. In this place, Chu Xiuhan couldn't cultivate because she couldn't absorb the yuan qi of heaven and earth. In this place, Chu Xiuhan was an out-and-out ordinary woman. It was just that this ordinary woman was too beautiful. In front of her, all the flowers seemed to lose their color. Heaven-ceasing peak, Lu Clan Manor. There were many mountain peaks in the Flying Star Continent. Among them, there were many tall and straight peaks. However, among these many peaks, the heaven-ceasing peak was the leader of the group. It was the highest peak in the Flying Star Continent. Only one faction on the Flying Star Continent had the qualifications to live on such a peak. That faction was the overlord of the Flying Star Continent, the Lu Clan. There were 8 overlord forces on the Flying Star Continent. These 8 forces stood at the peak of the continent. The Lu Clan was one of them. Apart from the mysterious dragon prison castle, the Lu Clan was even more powerful than the other great clans. Although the Lu family manor was called a manor, it was more like a palace in the middle of a mountain range. In this extremely luxurious palace, there was a very beautiful little building. The little building was surrounded by a flourishing scene that didn't fade all year round. There were fake mountains, flowing water, and verdant jade trees. No matter how picky a person was, they would most likely be unable to resist praising this scenery. But at this moment, the person on the small building had a worried expression. Everything around them was beautiful enough, but compared to this jade-like person, everything around them was nothing. The manor of the Lu family was never short of beauties. The 13 concubines of Lu Chuanjia, the leader of the manor, were all famous beauties on the Flying Star Continent. Although Lu Chuanjia's 7 daughters were only 16 years old, they were all equally beautiful. Therefore, the people here were very picky. Even so, when they saw the woman in the pavilion, they couldn't help but exclaim. The worry between her eyebrows was even more pitiful. Everyone couldn't help but want to show their concern, but no one dared to do so. This was because this woman was called Chu Xiuhan. She was the woman that the young master of the Lu family manor, Lu Xingjin, had taken a fancy to. "Xiuhan, it has been 3 months. I'm afraid that friend of yours is no longer in this world." Lu Xingjin was not a patient person. No matter what, he was very impatient. Lu Xingjin, who usually couldn't even wait for 3 days, had waited here for 3 months. Chapter 1269. Back then, after Tang Ao used the spatial talisman, Chu Xiuhan and Tang Ao came here together. At that time, Chu Xiuhan was saved by Lu Xingjin, but she also saw that Tang Ao fell into the bottomless abyss. 3 months had passed, and Chu Shuahan's external injuries had basically all recovered. However, Chu Shuahan was still very worried about whether Tang Ao was all right or not. If Tang Ao was still alive, where would Tang Ao be right now? Shuahan, back then, the cliff that Tang Ao fell into was the Forgetfulness Cliff. Not to mention me, even a peak Origin Realm cultivator like my father would die 10 times out of 10. Lu Xingjin's patience had never been good, but at that moment, his patience seemed to be exceptionally good. So what if he's an Origin Realm cultivator? If Big Brother Tang Ao was at his peak? Chu Shuahan didn't finish her words because she thought of the uniqueness of this place. On the Flying Star continent, Chu Shuahan couldn't feel a single strand of spiritual energy, so she couldn't cultivate it all. In Chu Shuahan's opinion, Tang Ao's current situation was most likely the same as hers. Impudent. After Chu Shuahan finished speaking, before Lu Xingjin could say anything, a slightly solemn voice came from outside the room. This person's appearance was somewhat similar to Lu Xingjin's. He had an imposing aura on him without being angry. Clearly, he was someone who had been in a high position for a long time. This person was the master of the Lu family's manor, Lu Xingjin's father, Lu Chuanjia. You said that Tang Ao's cultivation is very powerful? Is it because of Tang Ao that you didn't accept Xingjin? Fine, I will send down the Flying Star badge right now. As long as this Tang Ao is on the Flying Star continent, I will be able to find this Tang Ao. Lu Chuanjia's voice was very dignified. When Chu Shuahan heard Lu Chuanjia's words, she immediately became happy. As long as Tang Ao could be found, it meant that Tang Ao was still alive. Although Chu Shuahan knew that there was no spiritual energy here, for some reason, Chu Shuahan felt that Tang Ao must have a solution. When Lu Xingjin saw the faint smile that flashed across Chu Shuahan's face, his heart melted. At this moment, he hurriedly said, "Thank you, Father, for being willing to worry about me." Humph. Useless thing, for a woman, you actually became like this. Lu Chuanjia coldly glanced at Lu Xingjin and said, "In 3 months, I will hold a martial contest for this girl at the Meteor Tower. If that Tang Ao was really that powerful, he would definitely show up. Whoever can suppress the heroes of the Flying Star continent on the Flying Star platform will be her Mr. Right." How could Lu Xingjin not understand that his father was helping him? He immediately cupped his fists and said, "I will listen to Father's arrangements." I disagree. When Chu Shuahan heard this, she immediately became anxious. Now that Tang Ao's whereabouts were unknown, Chu Shuahan couldn't be sure if Tang Ao would know about this matter in 3 months. Moreover, Chu Shuahan didn't know if Tang Ao could cultivate in this place. If Tang Ao couldn't cultivate at all, how could Tang Ao be a match for these people? That's not up to you. Lu Chuanjia coldly said to Chu Shuahan and immediately flicked his sleeves and left. Although Lu Chuanjia was also stunned by Chu Shuahan's beauty, because Chu Shuahan couldn't cultivate, Lu Chuanjia still didn't think that Chu Shuahan was a perfect match for his son. It was just that his silly son had always been obsessed with martial arts. Now that he had finally met a girl he liked, he naturally had to facilitate this beautiful marriage. Otherwise, with Lu Xingjin's talent, if he held a martial contest, who knew how many girls would fight to marry him? Chapter 1270. As the saying goes, the onlooker sees the game more clearly than the person involved. Tang Ao saw everything clearly from the side. Su Hongyi had 2 powerful attacks. One was a flower fate soul that could bewitch a person's mind, and the other was a rainbow ribbon fate soul that had a hallucinatory effect. The combination of these 2 life souls might be fatal to ordinary warriors. However, to Tang Ming, it was not of much use. After Tang Ming executed the evil blood technique, he had completely lost his consciousness and was completely relying on his instincts to fight. This way, after Tang Ming realized that Su Hongyi's 2 life souls attacks didn't cause him any pain, he continued fighting Su Hongyi's life soul attacks. This kind of battle made Su Hongyi want to vomit blood. Tang Ao also didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, Su Hongyi was still at the ninth tier of the body refining realm. Even if her life soul was targeted, she still had the upper hand. If this continued, as long as the effects of Tang Ming's evil blood technique wore off, Tang Ming would definitely die. At the same time, Tang Ao was also rejoicing. If Tang Ao had not chosen to flee and instead fought to the death with Tang Ming, his essence would have long been depleted. Furthermore, Tang Ming's secret technique would not have been dispelled. On the path of a martial artist, talent and hard work were indispensable, but sometimes luck was the same. At this moment, Tang Ao narrowed his eyes. This was because Tang Ao could sense that Wu Han, who was far away, could no longer sit still. While Su Hongyi and Tang Ming were still locked in an intense battle, Wu Han had already quietly approached the area where the two of them were fighting. As he approached the two of them, Wu Han's aura slowly changed. Sensing the change in Wu Han's aura, Tang Ao was very surprised. Through Tang Ao's senses, Wu Han's aura had become somewhat similar to Tang Ming's. However, Wu Han was different from Tang Ming. The reason why Tang Ming lost control of his evil blood technique was because he was too emotional and injured. However, at this moment, Wu Han was clearly not injured. Moreover, Wu Han's eyes were very calm, showing no signs of losing his rationality. As Wu Han got closer and closer, wisps of blood chi fluctuations started to radiate from his body. After these blood chi fluctuations were released, Wu Han's aura was already very close to Tang Ming's aura. However, compared to Tang Ming, Wu Han's aura was much stronger. Tang Ao saw a flash of light on Wu Han's storage ring. Then, Wu Han took out a silver mask from the storage ring. This mask was a very powerful treasure. After Wu Han put on the mask, even Tang Ao couldn't see Wu Han's face through the mask. If not for the fact that Tang Ao had witnessed the entire process of Wu Han executing the evil blood technique, Tang Ao would not have been able to tell that the masked man was Wu Han. After putting on the silver mask, Wu Han no longer suppressed his aura. Boom! In an instant, a blood-colored storm swept through the area, and the surrounding space seemed to be dyed red by a layer of scarlet blood mist. Seeing Wu Han's strong aura, Tang Ao was also secretly shocked. Needless to say, Tang Ao knew that Wu Han was also a martial artist who cultivated the evil blood technique. However, when comparing Wu Han and Tang Ming, Wu Han's evil blood technique was clearly superior. After Tang Ming executed the evil blood technique, his cultivation had only reached the peak of the 7th level of the body refining realm. Moreover, he had also lost his consciousness. However, after Wu Han executed the evil blood technique, his cultivation had directly reached the peak of the 8th level of the body refining realm. Chapter 1271. That's right, the Yuan Qi in Wu Han's body was like boiling water as it flowed through Wu Han's meridians. This Yuan Qi circulation speed shocked even Tang Ao. Tang Ao possessed the 9-Dragon Emperor Jade body, so his Yuan Qi circulation speed wasn't something normal martial artists could compare to. However, after Wu Han used the evil blood technique, the circulation speed of Wu Han's Yuan Qi was even stronger than Tang Ao's. Of course, this was largely because Tang Ao's Spirit C and Soul C were both shattered. However, Wu Han being able to do this after using the evil blood technique was already very impressive. Wu Han's sudden burst of aura naturally attracted Tang Ming and Su Hongyi's attention. Su Hongyi's soul remembrance swept over and discovered another martial artist who cultivated the evil blood technique. This person was wearing a silver mask. Since her soul remembrance couldn't see through it, Su Hongyi didn't know who this person was. However, Su Hongyi knew that this person was definitely much stronger than the Tang Ming in front of her. Right now, she knew how to fight with Tang Ming. Although she had the upper hand, she couldn't defeat Tang Ming. Now, another martial artist who cultivated the evil blood technique had arrived. Moreover, this martial artist was even stronger than Tang Ming. She definitely wasn't their match. Just as Su Hongyi was considering whether or not to escape, another incomparably imposing aura flew over from the distance. After sensing this aura, Su Hongyi's face lit up with joy, and her expression became much more relaxed. Although the person who had arrived was a person she hated, for this person to arrive at this time, Su Hongyi felt that he wasn't that annoying anymore. Tang Ao's soul remembrance was much stronger than the people present. Therefore, Tang Ao was naturally able to immediately sense that an expert had arrived. Moreover, this person was someone that Tang Ao recognized. It was Shadowless, who had previously taken a liking to Tang Ao's essence blood. Tang Ao was still secretly guessing why these people were collecting essence blood from martial artists and whether his fake essence blood had been discovered. However, Tang Ao believed that nobody in the Flying Star continent would be able to see through his trick, considering the understanding of essence blood of the warriors of the Flying Star continent. Shadowless was also at the peak of the body refinement realm. From his dense aura, Tang Ao could tell that Shadowless was stronger than Su Hongyi. Wu Han, who was extremely arrogant, frowned when he saw Shadowless. However, as he frowned, the pendant on his neck said, "Fight Shadowless. Let's see how strong Old Candle Nine's godson is." Shadowless had killed a Tier 2 blood demon before. Are you sending me to my death? Unlike Tang Ming, Wu Han's mind remained clear after using the evil blood technique. His senses also became extremely sharp. While talking to the pendant, Wu Han even glanced in the direction of Tang Ao with a puzzled look. However, after using his soul remembrance to scan the area and finding nothing, Wu Han finally relaxed. So you don't dare to fight Shadowless? The pendant's voice was slightly dissatisfied. Let alone Shadowless. Even if his old man Candle 9 came, I would still dare to fight. However, I have a condition. Wu Han didn't immediately attack. Instead, he spoke very casually. Although Wu Han was only a Tier 2 blood demon, he didn't feel as much pressure as he imagined facing Shadowless. Chapter 1272. Your luck isn't bad. You actually encountered a rank 2 blood devil. Shadowless's body flashed and appeared 9 meters away from Wu Han. Even with Tang Ao's powerful soul remembrance, he could only barely catch a glimpse of Shadowless's shadow in the air. It seemed like Shadowless's name wasn't without reason. However, although Shadowless's move was beautiful, it was useless in front of Wu Han. I wonder what expression Elder Zhu Jio will have if I kill Zhu Jio's favorite godson here. After using evil blood technique, Wu Han's cultivation was only at the peak of body refining realm 8th level. However, facing Shadowless, who was at the peak of body refining realm 9th level, Wu Han didn't know how to be afraid. Through Wu Han's silver mask, Tang Ao could even see the intense battle intent in Wu Han's eyes. Tang Ao was slightly confused. No matter how he looked at it, Wu Han didn't look like someone who liked to fight. However, facing Shadowless, for some reason, Wu Han's body was bursting with a monstrous battle intent. Could it be that after using evil blood technique, a martial artist personality would change? If that was the case, then this evil blood technique was too terrifying. You seem to be very confident. Although Wu Han spoke rudely, Shadowless wasn't angry. Such a cold person shouldn't have such a good temper. However, Shadowless's temper was surprisingly good. Facing a dead person, Shadowless's emotions normally wouldn't change much. At this moment, in Shadowless's eyes, Wu Han was already a dead person. No matter who the person under the mask was, he was already a dead person. Shadowless's life was saved by Zhu Jio, so Shadowless wouldn't allow anyone to slander Zhu Jio. Moreover, the person slandering Zhu Jio was a rank 2 blood devil. Just like the blood devil that slaughtered his entire family, it was only a rank 2 blood devil. The only difference was that back then, he could only watch as the blood devil slaughtered his family. However, it was different now. He had already killed more than 10 rank 2 blood devils. As for rank 1 blood devils, he had killed so many that he couldn't even remember how many he had killed. Confidence requires strength. My strength allows me to be confident. After Wu Han said that, he took the initiative to attack. Wu Han clenched his hands, and two blood-colored short spears instantly appeared in his hands. In a previous battle between Wu Han and Tang Ao, although Wu Han was using two short swords, Tang Ao could still see that Wu Han's usage of the two short swords was somewhat awkward. Only when Wu Han took out the two blood-colored short spears did Tang Ao realize that the short swords were not Wu Han's real weapons. Wu Han's real weapons were the two short spears covered in blood mist. The design of these two short spears was very exquisite, and there was a hint of death in it. Wu Han shook his hands, and the two spears attacked Shadowless like two cunning venomous snakes. Facing Wu Han's attack, Shadowless also took out his martial artist. Although Shadowless was very fast, Tang Ao could clearly see that Shadowless' weapon was a magistrate pen. The brush was 3 feet long and had a sharp tip. For a cold person like Shadowless, it was hard to imagine that his weapon was a judge pen. Tang Ao didn't know whether Wu Han could think of it or not, but Tang Ao himself couldn't think of it no matter what. Chapter 1273. Tang Ao was a little speechless. Tang Ao really couldn't understand the deep hatred between Wu Han and Shadowless. The two of them fought with all their might the moment they made their move. Su Hongyi and Tang Ming hadn't suffered any obvious injuries after fighting for so long. However, the moment Wu Han and Shadowless clashed, the short spear in Wu Han's left hand pierced through Shadowless' right shoulder, while Shadowless's magistrate brush swept through Wu Han's left rib. If the two of them wanted to, they could clearly avoid such an attack. However, neither Wu Han nor Shadowless had any intention of dodging. After injuring each other with one move, they clashed intensely again. Both of their attacks were extremely ruthless, and they didn't care about the consequences. There would be blood splattering from time to time in their battle, but it didn't affect their intense battle at all. Tang Ao's blood was boiling as he watched this battle, but he was also a little speechless at the same time. Based on the current situation, Shadowless and Wu Han were evenly matched. Neither of them could suppress the other. If this continued, both of them might very well perish together. Both of them were high-level body refinement realm warriors, so Tang Ao didn't believe that they would have thought of such a simple ending. In fact, both of them had thought of such an outcome, but they were still clashing head-on, unwilling to admit defeat. Brilliance flickered in midair, and a blood-colored brilliance dyed the entire region red. However, there was a distinct black and white region in this blood-colored brilliance. Shadowless held the magistrate brush tightly in his hand and attacked Wu Han continuously. Wu Han's dual spear attacks were also extremely fast. Although there would be a bloody mist erupting from his body from time to time, Shadowless would also spurt out a bloody mist every time. The two of them were evenly matched, and the battle was in full swing. Their battle intent was boiling. On the other side, Tang Ming and Su Hongyi were still fighting in a lukewarm manner. Due to the difference in cultivation, Tang Ming couldn't hurt Su Hongyi. His two strongest life souls were restrained by Tang Ming, so Su Hongyi couldn't hurt Tang Ming for a while. Just as Tang Ao thought that the battle was going to continue like this, Tang Ming's aura began to stir restlessly. Tang Ao's eyes narrowed, and he wondered if Tang Ming's evil blood technique's duration was about to end. Su Hongyi, who was fighting Tang Ming, was delighted when she saw this. Although the evil blood technique was powerful, it had a time limit. Previously, Tang Ming had engaged in a bitter battle with Tang Ao and had even chased Tang Ao for a long time. At this point, Tang Mingxia's evil blood arts transformation had finally reached its limit. Even so, Tang Ao was still amazed by the power of the evil blood technique. If Tang Ming didn't suffer a severe backlash after coming into contact with the evil blood technique, then this technique was truly heaven-defying. However, the evil blood technique did not appear to be easy to cultivate. Furthermore, be it Tang Ming or Wu Han, after using the evil blood technique, the aura within their bodies became somewhat sinister, making others feel very uncomfortable. The aura, and the aura, and their blood seemed to be, and he, it, and the Ming. Chapter 1274. Although soul remembrance couldn't detect him, the naked eye could. If Tang Ming lured Su Hongyi over, Su Hongyi would definitely discover him. Tang Ao really didn't want to cause trouble. Thus, the instant he saw Tang Ming coming over, Tang Ao immediately leaped up and was about to escape. However, before Tang Ao could leave, Tang Ao was surprised to see Tang Ming, who was originally running away, suddenly turn around. Then, Tang Ming opened his mouth and a scarlet arrow of blood shot towards Su Hongyi, who was chasing him relentlessly. Su Hongyi and Tang Ming had fought intensely for a long time. Su Hongyi knew of Tang Ming's methods. However, in the previous fights, Su Hongyi had never seen Tang Ming use this technique. Adding on the fact that Tang Ming wasn't in a good state and wanted to escape, Su Hongyi wasn't prepared. Puchi. The scarlet blood arrow created a rain of blood on Su Hongyi's body. Su Hongyi cried out in alarm. She immediately felt a wave of dizziness, and her body uncontrollably fell to the ground. Shadowless, who was fighting Wuhan, naturally heard Su Hongyi's cry. Shadowless scanned with his soul remembrance and saw Su Hongyi fall from the sky. How could Shadowless care about Wuhan now? The judge's brush in his hand swept out and forced Wuhan back. Shadowless's figure flashed and appeared next to Su Hongyi. The instant Shadowless appeared, Tang Ming's attack also arrived. However, Tang Ming clearly didn't expect Shadowless to arrive so quickly to support him. He couldn't take back his attack. Seeing Tang Ming's sharp claws, Shadowless coldly harumphed and threw the judge's brush in his hand. It immediately swept towards Tang Ming's palm. The soft tip of the brush suddenly became incomparably sharp and indestructible. Puchi. A cold light flashed, and Tang Ming's palm was pierced by Shadowless's judge's brush. Scalding blood sprayed out, splashing onto Shadowless and Su Hongyi. At this moment, Tang Ming let out a cry and slapped away Shadowless's judge's brush. He then fled without hesitation. After Tang Ming escaped, Wuhan looked at Tang Ming and Shadowless hesitantly. Then he said to Shadowless coldly, "I'll keep you alive for now. You won't be so lucky next time." Then, Wuhan immediately chased after Tang Ming. Facing Wuhan's threat, Shadowless didn't care. He snorted and immediately flew away with Su Hongyi in his arms. The blood arrow that Tang Ming had spat out had pierced through Su Hongyi's chest. Just an inch more, and that blood arrow would have shattered Su Hongyi's heart. Even so, Su Hongyi's injuries weren't something to be happy about. Therefore, even though they were so close, they did not notice Tang Ao's presence. At this distance, no matter how strong Tang Ao's soul remembrance was, as long as they released their soul remembrance to investigate, they would be able to find some clues. It was just that these people had been too confident from the beginning to the end, thinking that there was no one else here other than the four of them. However, Tang Ao knew that what had happened here today was known by at least 6 people. Other than Shadowless's group and Tang Ao, the martial artist who had released his soul remembrance through the pendant on Wuhan's neck also knew. Chapter 1275. Because in Tang Ao's perception, although these people weren't slow, they hadn't gone far yet. After waiting for a while until they disappeared from Tang Ao's soul remembrance perception, Tang Ao slowly jumped off the thick tree trunk. However, Tang Ao didn't leave the forest. Instead, he sat down quietly and started to recover his energy. For some reason, Tang Ao felt that the energy in this forest was slightly denser than in other places. After Tang Ao sat down, he immediately started a circulatory cycle according to his cultivation method. The drifting energy in the forest seemed to be endlessly attracted, immediately gathering towards Tang Ao's location from all directions. Traces of invisible energy constantly gathered around Tang Ao, finally forming a huge whirlpool. Tang Ao was at the center of this whirlpool, greedily devouring the energy that constantly gathered. At this moment, Tang Ao was like a dry sponge, greedily absorbing the surrounding energy. As Tang Ao continuously cultivated, a huge whirlpool appeared above the forest. The surrounding energy was attracted by this whirlpool, endlessly surging towards Tang Ao. However, Tang Ao's constitution was too special. Every time he leveled up, the amount of energy required was 10 times or even tens of times greater. Therefore, after absorbing and refining so much energy, Tang Ao's cultivation only rose from the initial stage of the 5th level of the body refining realm to the peak of the 5th level of the body refining realm. If a normal martial artist refined so much energy, no matter how weak their spirit root was, they would still be able to reach the peak of the 9th level of the body refining realm. However, Tang Ao couldn't even break through to the 6th level of the body refining realm. Of course, this wasn't because Tang Ao's martial talent wasn't good, but because Tang Ao's 9 Dragon Emperor Jade body was too domineering. Martial artists with the 9 Dragon Emperor Jade body were often invincible amongst martial artists of the same level. However, the price of being invincible was not easy. During the cultivation process, the 9 Dragons Emperor Jade body martialists expended a terrifying amount of energy, effort, and cultivation resources. Although he had yet to break through to the 6th level of the body refining realm, Tang Ao knew that if he were to meet someone like Luo Ping now, he would be able to beat Luo Ping up within 3 moves. Back then, among the cultivators who had tried to snatch his essence cultivating pill, this Luo Ping had been the first to make a move. He had even caused him to lose an essence cultivating pill. However, Tang Ao was also a little puzzled. It seemed that after that time, he had never seen Luo Ping again. This made Tang Ao a little depressed. It wasn't easy for him to cultivate, but he couldn't get revenge even if he wanted to. After meditating for a while, Tang Ao summoned the battle Sagebone Life Soul with a thought. With the augmentation of the battle Sagebone Life Soul, Tang Ao's flying speed was much faster. Although Tang Ao could also summon the Wind Thunder Dark Cloud to increase his speed to the extreme, the burden of the Wind Thunder Dark Cloud was too great for the current Tang Ao. If Tang Ao used the Wind Thunder Dark Cloud to rush back to Qinyan Village, then after Tang Ao returned to Qinyan Village, his Yuan Qi would definitely be completely depleted. Therefore, after some thought, Tang Ao decided to only use the Battle Sagebone Life Soul to augment his speed. After Tang Ao released the Battle Sagebone Life Soul, Tang Ao immediately released his Yuan Qi and rushed in the direction of Qinyan Village. After such a long time, Tang Ao didn't know what was going on in Qinyan Village. He didn't know if the beast horde had been defended or if the Qinyan Alliance had experts coming to reinforce them. With these questions in mind, Tang Ao secretly sped up. Chapter 1276. The dragon-subduing cave was vast and boundless. Even with Tang Ao's flying speed, it took him an incense's worth of time before he returned to Qinyan Village. After returning to Qinyan Village, Tang Ao discovered that things weren't progressing as well as he had imagined. At that moment, within Qinyan Village, the beast tide didn't disperse. Instead, it was getting more and more severe. What was more reassuring was that experts from the Qinyan Alliance had arrived one after another. Tang Ao scanned with his spirit remembrance and saw a familiar person. That person wore a blue gown. It was Chu Feng, who Tang Ao had met once before. Although the two of them had only met once, Tang Ao's impression of Chu Feng was quite good. When Tang Ao saw Chu Feng's words and actions were all calm and at ease. However, at that moment, Chu Feng wasn't as carefree as before because 9 calf-sized tarantulas were gathered around him. Not only were the tarantulas enormous in size, but the aura they emitted was also extremely terrifying. The most troublesome thing was that the 9 tarantulas had woven a dense and huge web around them. The huge web was very powerful. At that moment, it trapped many people. There were cultivators from the Qinyan Alliance, as well as ordinary people from Qinyan Village. The cultivators from the Qinyan Alliance were in a better state. Although their bodies twitched from time to time, they were still alive. As for the ordinary people trapped by the spider web, they were motionless. There was no aura on their bodies. Clearly, they had died a long time ago. Tang Ao saw that there were many cultivators outside the spider web. Although they wanted to go up and save Chu Feng, they were a bit helpless against the huge spider web. After seeing this group of people, Tang Ao descended from the sky and came to their side. Seeing cultivators coming over, the cultivators from the Qingyun Alliance were secretly on guard. However, after seeing the Qingyun Alliance badge hanging on Tang Ao's waist, they relaxed. Although the Qingyun League had declined, there was still a continuous influx of new blood. In addition, this group of martial artists often mingled in the Evergreen Valley, so it was normal that they did not recognize the newcomer, Tang Ao. "Who are you?" Without waiting for Tang Ao to speak, an arrogant young man in the crowd shouted at Tang Ao. This person was dressed in embroidered clothes and had a jade crown on his head. He had delicate features and looked quite handsome. From the way the female martial artists around him stole glances at him from time to time, he could tell that this person was definitely the dream lover of many female martial artists. Tang Ao also felt that he was quite good-looking, but his feminine and vicious aura was a little heavy. They were all members of the Qingyun Alliance, but this person spoke as if he was born to be a cut above others. However, Tang Ao didn't mind too much. "I'm Tang Ao. How should I address you, friend?" "How dare you? This is Deputy Alliance Leader Ho's son, Ho Tianxi. He is not someone you can associate with. This time, on account that you don't know, I'll let it go. The next time you see young Master Tianxi, don't be rude." Before Ho Tianxi could speak, a martial artist in gray beside him shouted sternly. After the martial artist in gray finished speaking, Ho Tianxi also looked at Tang Ao coldly. It was obvious that he was very dissatisfied with Tang Ao. At this moment, Tang Ao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The fact that the Qingyun League had an alliance leader and 2 deputy alliance leaders, Tang Ao knew about this. Cold Moon, who had given Tang Ao the middle-grade essence cultivating pill, was the current alliance leader of the Qingyun League. Other than her, the 2 deputy alliance leaders were Lin Dongnan and a martial artist called Ho Yaoying. Tang Ao heard that this deputy alliance leader, Ho Yaoying, led the Qingyun League's martial artists to be stationed in the Evergreen Valley's encampment all year round. Chapter 1277. Although that view is a bit one-sided, as the saying goes, like father, like son, Ho Tianxi's overbearing attitude and his tendency to think he was a cut above others was definitely related to his father, Ho Yaoying. "Uncle Ding Peng, what we do now?" Ho Tianxi didn't pay any more attention to Tang Ao. A martial artist dressed in a green robe shouted beside him. Tang Ao noticed the azure-robed martial artist immediately. His expression was very serious. No matter who he looked at, there was no emotion in his gaze. The scariest thing was that his aura was very steady. If a normal martial artist's aura was like a flowing spring, then his aura would be like a pool of stagnant water. Of course, a person like that wouldn't only attract Tang Ao's attention. Although he didn't speak, no matter where he went, others would unnaturally notice him. However, his cold face made people not dare to stop their gazes on him for too long. The 9-headed wolf spider's main body is very strong. It is only at the 5th level of the body, refinement realm. However, the net they weave around it is quite powerful. Normal blades and swords cannot cut this net. Once fire is used to burn it, it will explode. After speaking to that point, Ding Peng thought for a moment, then continued. "If Sun Xiaohu was here, we could have him go in and save Chu Feng. Right now, Sun Xiaohu isn't here, so we can only leave." "Uncle Ding Peng, what about Brother Chu Feng?" asked a rather young girl after hearing Ding Peng's words. "Our mission is to take care of the Qingyun Alliance's encampment in the Evergreen Valley. The matters of the Qingyun village don't have much to do with us. Right now, we are only passing by. We have to hurry back. We've done all that we can. Now we just need to return." "Huh, that doesn't sound like you." Just as Ding Peng finished speaking, a loud laugh came from afar. At the same time as the laughter came, a person flew towards Chu Feng's direction. Tang Ao scanned with his spirit remembrance and knew it was Zhong Shan. However, at that moment, Zhongshan had lost an arm, and his condition wasn't very good. Seeing that Zhongshan rashly went in to save Chu Feng, Tang Ao hurriedly said, "Brother Zhongshan, you can't." Unlike Ho Tianxi, Tang Ao naturally wouldn't just stand by and watch. It was just that Tang Ao hadn't thought of any good ideas yet. However, Zhongshan seemed to have already made up his mind. After hearing Tang Ao's words, he only slightly paused in midair before flying towards Chu Feng's location. Just then, a green figure flashed and instantly appeared beside Zhongshan. Before Zhongshan could react, he was blasted back by the green figure's palm. Although he had long known that Ding Peng was powerful, Tang Ao was still quite surprised when he saw Ding Peng in action. The martial artist who sent Zhongshan flying with a palm was Ding Peng. However, after Ding Peng forced Zhongshan back, he did not continue to save Chu Feng. Instead, he withdrew himself. The hidden dragon caves were too cruel. No matter what, it was extremely dangerous to consume too much energy and get injured in the hidden dragon caves. Those were the words Ding Peng's elder brother said to Ding Peng before his death. It was also his elder brother who used his own life in exchange for Ding Peng's. "Uncle Ding Peng, you said that after burning, these spider webs will explode? How's the power of the explosion?" Ho Tianxi asked Ding Peng after Ding Peng returned. "It's quite powerful. I'm afraid this place will be flattened." Monstrous beasts like the tarantula were the hardest and easiest to deal with in the Evergreen Valley. No matter how strong a tarantula was, its spider silk would explode. That was the killer move of the tarantula. After the tarantula used spider silk to trap its prey, it would detonate its own spider silk and kill the prey. Chapter 1278. However, other than the 9 tarantulas, Chu Feng was also trapped within the spider web. Moreover, there were many warriors struggling on the tarantula's web. These warriors were constantly wailing at Tang Ao and the others. Apparently, they were begging Tang Ao and the others to help them. This was because the spider web was too tough. Ordinary weapons simply could not cut through it. Tang Ao knew that if he was willing to take out the Netherworld sword, cutting through the spider web would not be a problem. However, Tang Ao had lived 2 lives. He knew very well that an ordinary man's wealth would make him guilty. Tarantulas were monstrous beasts that were relatively densely distributed in the Evergreen Valley. Once Tang Ao took out the Netherworld sword and cut through the spider web, who knew how many people would be envious? After all, with a weapon like the Netherworld sword, he would not have to fear the other monstrous beasts in the Evergreen Valley, but the tarantulas. Additionally, Tang Ao was aware that he was not the only one amongst them with an immortal artifact. Although the others might only possess broken immortal artifacts, as long as they were willing to bring out their immortal artifacts, it would not be an issue for them to cut a hole in this spiderweb. Haifian was only at the 5th level of the body refinement realm, yet he was able to obtain a broken immortal artifact. Tang Ao did not believe that Ho Tianxi and the other cultivators who stayed in the Evergreen Valley did not have immortal artifacts. It was just that everyone had their own worries, so they were not willing to take them out. Since we can kill the tarantulas, this will be much simpler. As Tang Ao pondered, Ho Tianxi muttered. Shortly after, he spat out origin energy from his palm, and a ball of flame shot out. Seeing the flame in Ho Tianxi's hand, several cultivators who were still conscious but trapped in the spider web immediately shouted, "Young Master Tianxi, please spare us. Young Master Tianxi, please spare us." These people were all cultivators who had personally seen the explosion of the spider web. The spider web that trapped them was woven by 9 tarantulas, so the power of the explosion could be imagined. Not to mention being trapped in the spider web. Even if they had been a bit closer to the spider web when it exploded, they would not have survived. Tang Ao was disgusted by Ho Tianxi's actions. Since he didn't have the ability to save them, he could just watch from the side. Once the ball of fire in his hand flew to the wolf spider web, these people would die without a doubt. Brother Tang Ao, do you have any good ideas? Zhongshan wasn't a stubborn person. After being blasted back by Ding Peng's palm, Zhongshan didn't say much to Ding Peng. Similarly, Zhongshan didn't rush forward again. The reason why Zhongshan did that just now was mainly to force Ding Peng to make a move. But now, Zhongshan understood that after that incident, Ding Peng was no longer the Ding Peng of the past. Just now, Ding Peng being able to force him back was already Ding Peng's limit. Zhongshan guessed that Ding Peng would not stop him if he rushed towards the wolf spiderweb again. Zhongshan could only sigh helplessly in his heart. It had been a long time since that incident, and Ding Peng's strength had undergone earth-shattering changes, but for some reason, he seemed to be unable to walk out of the shadow of that year. Tang Ao didn't know anything about those past events. At that instant, Tang Ao's mind was spinning rapidly as he thought about how to break the spider web and save Chu Feng. Right now, to Chu Feng and the people trapped in the spider web, the 9 tarantulas were clearly the most dangerous. Chapter 1279. The best way was for Chu Feng, who was in the web, to display his might and kill all 9 of the tarantulas. However, even though Chu Feng was a martial artist at the 6th level of the body refinement realm, a fierce tiger could not fight against a pack of wolves. At that instant, when Chu Feng was facing the 9 tarantulas at the 5th level, he could only defend. He had no strength to fight back. And this was even when Chu Feng was using his agility to continuously fight with the tarantulas. If it were a normal martial artist at the 6th level, they would have been killed by the tarantulas countless times already. Even so, Chu Feng's situation was still not optimistic. Under the siege of the 9 tarantulas, Chu Feng was constantly surrounded by danger. In a situation like that, the best way was to find a chance to kill one of the tarantulas. After breaking through the gap, he would kill all 9 of them. However, that was easy to think of, but in reality, it was not so easy to do. Everyone retreat. If these 9 tarantulas wreak havoc in Qingyun village, the consequences will be unimaginable. I will eliminate these 9 tarantulas right now. As Tang Ao was thinking, Ho Tianxi suddenly spoke clearly. As he spoke, the flames gathered in Ho Tianxi's hand suddenly flew out and flew straight towards the spiderweb. That scene was out of everyone's expectations. Quite a few people had personally seen the power of a spiderweb's explosion. They simply could not imagine what kind of power such a large spiderweb would produce. So, in the instant that the exploding flames in Ho Tianxi's hand flew out, the martial artists trapped in the spider web closed their eyes in despair. A few people let out unwilling roars and curses. The surrounding martial artists quickly retreated. Their speed was so fast that it was as if they were using the fastest bodily skills in their lives. However, Tang Ao did not retreat. Instead, he advanced. It was originally not a dead end, but as Ho Tianxi threw out the flames, those people were truly dead. Tang Ao retreat. As Tang Ao flew towards the spider web, a voice full of energy yelled from afar. Naturally, Tang Ao recognized that voice. It was one of the Vice Alliance masters of the Qingyun Alliance, Lin Dongnan. However, Tang Ao was not yelled back by Lin Dongnan. After Lin Dongnan's reminder, Tang Ao still leaped towards the lively flames. In the instant he neared the flames, a dark blue flame appeared in front of Tang Ao. In the instant he neared the flames, a dark blue flame appeared in front of Tang Ao. Once the netherworld flame appeared, it instantly swallowed and refined Ho Tianxi's flame. At this time, Ho Tianxi's flame had arrived in front of the spiderweb. As long as Tang Ao hesitated for a moment, not only would all the cultivators on the spiderweb die, Tang Ao would also inevitably fall. At such a short distance, if the spiderweb exploded, Ao would be killed even if he used the Shinnong cauldron. It was a good thing that Tang Ao acted decisively, so there was no tragedy. But when Tang Ao made a move to retract the flames, Ho Tianxi immediately cursed, "Bastard, you actually dare to stop this young master from killing the demonic beasts." Scram! This time, Tang Ao did not stand on ceremony with Ho Tianxi. Tang Ao hated this kind of hedonistic son who used his power to bully others. If it wasn't for the fact that Tang Ao did not want to cause trouble, even if Tang Ao killed Ho Tianxi, Tang Ao could only say that Ho Tianxi died in vain. As for the Vice Alliance Master father behind Ho Tianxi, Tang Ao really did not put him in his eyes. If he really forced Tang Ao into a corner, Tang Ao could directly take out the primordial sacred heaven bow and send him on his way. It was just that with Tang Ao's current strength, after using the primordial sacred heaven bow, he would immediately exhaust his energy and lose his combat strength. If it was just a one-on-one fight, it would naturally be fine. But if Tang Ao was surrounded by a group of people, then Tang Ao would never dare to use the primordial sacred heaven bow. However, even if Tang Ao did not use the primordial sacred heaven bow, these people would not be able to stop Tang Ao. Chapter 1280. Tang Ao's scolding immediately infuriated Ho Tianxi. Ho Tianxi's yuan qi exploded. With a wave of his hand, a longsword life spirit was released instantly. The moment he saw this life spirit, Tang Ao was secretly speechless. This was because Ho Tianxi's cultivation was not strong. However, his martial arts talent was the strongest among all the experts that Tang Ao had met on the Facian continent. This was because the life spirit that Ho Tianxi had summoned was the 11th level of Heaven's life spirit. Ho Tianxi was only a warrior at the 6th level of the body refining realm, but he could already comprehend the 11th level of Heaven's life spirit. Such martial talent could no longer be described as genius. He could be said to be monstrous. Even Tang Ao could not awaken such a powerful life spirit when he was at the 6th level of the body refining realm. Seeing Ho Tianxi's life spirit, Tang Ao could also understand why Ho Tianxi always had a domineering appearance. Because his martial talent was too outstanding, and under the protection of his father, Ho Tianxi might have formed the idea of being superior to others since he was young. It was just that since ancient times, there were countless warriors with outstanding martial talent, but the path of a genius was not so smooth. In the process of a warrior's growth, the number of geniuses who died prematurely accounted for almost 90% of the total number of geniuses. Therefore, if it was in the black-yellow continent or the ice and snow plains, a genius with a personality like Ho Tianxi would have died prematurely many times over. Even in this hidden dragon cave, Ho Tianxi was not absolutely safe. Not to mention Tang Ao. In this hidden dragon cave, there were many warriors at the 6th level of the body, refining realm and above. Even warriors at the 8th and 9th level of the body, refining realm, were not rare. If Ho Tianxi were to fall into the hands of these people, he would probably not even know how he died. However, Ho Tianxi's father clearly thought of this problem, so he let Ding Peng, who was at the 8th level of the body refining realm, watch over Ho Tianxi. Ho Tianxi walked in front of Tang Ao and said in a cold voice, "You have quite the guts. Enough. Since you're not going to help, just leave." Lin Dongnan snorted coldly when he saw Ho Tianxi walking towards Tang Ao. Lin Dongnan and Ho Tianxi's father, Ho Yaoying, didn't get along, so Lin Dongnan didn't have a good expression when facing Ho Tianxi. Of course, this was not because Lin Dongnan was narrow-minded and vented his anger on Ho Tianxi, but because Ho Tianxi's actions made Lin Dongnan very uncomfortable. Humph! Lin Dongnan, others might be afraid of you, but I... Impudent! Without waiting for Ho Tianxi to finish speaking, Lin Dongnan waved his sleeves and slapped him. However, Lin Dongnan's slap still didn't land on Ho Tianxi's face. Instead, it was blocked by Ding Peng, who flashed like a ghost. Ding Peng was Lin Dongnan's junior. Therefore, when Ding Peng saw Lin Dongnan, he didn't be as rude as Ho Tianxi. Instead, he cupped his fist towards Lin Dongnan politely. "Deputy Alliance Leader Lin, sorry for the offense." After saying this, Ding Peng stood to the side. Those who were familiar with Ding Peng knew that Ding Peng had changed a lot. After so many years, Ding Peng had also become colder and colder. Lin Dongnan glanced at Ding Peng and said indifferently, "Sai, you guys can leave." Ding Peng heard this, as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. However, before Ding Peng could speak, Ho Tianxi immediately said, "It's easy to leave. Let Tang Ao fight with me. If he wins, this matter will be over. If he loses, I won't make things difficult for him. How about just breaking one of his hands?" Chapter 1281. The most terrifying thing was that ever since Ho Tianxi started cultivating, he had never lost in a battle with martial artists of the same level. Even if he fought with some martial artist who stayed in a certain realm all year round, Ho Tianxi would most likely end up in a draw or even a narrow victory. Hence, after Ho Tianxi proposed to fight with Tang Ao, it was also unexpected that Ho Tianxi was determined to break one of Tang Ao's arms this time. No one here thought that Tang Ao would be Ho Tianxi's match, especially under the circumstances where Ho Tianxi's cultivation was a whole level higher than Tang Ao's. Without waiting for Tang Ao to speak, Zhongshan immediately said to Tang Ao, "Brother Tang Ao, this Ho Tianxi is a rare genius martial artist in the Hidden Dragon Crypt. Ever since he started cultivating, he has been an invincible existence among those of the same level. You leave immediately now, I'll block him for you. Thank you for elder brother's good intentions. I, Tang Ao, have never had the practice of avoiding a battle and running away. Since young master Ho wants to fight, then this Tang will fight," Tang Ao said as he took a step forward. The surrounding people also hurriedly avoided when they saw this scene. Afraid that Ho Tianxi would be unhappy and vent his anger on him, Lin Dongnan glanced at Tang Ao and walked towards the wolf spider web. Others could not do anything to the wolf spider web, but this could not stump him, Lin Dongnan. After mingling in the Hidden Dragon Crypt for so many years, and also being Qing Yun's deputy alliance leader, Lin Dongnan naturally had an immortal artifact in his hands. It was just that Lin Dongnan's immortal artifact was also an immortal artifact fragment. Even with Tang Ao's eyesight, he could not tell what this immortal artifact fragment was. But sensing the sharp aura contained in this immortal artifact fragment, Tang Ao knew that Lin Dongnan wanted to break the wolf spider web without any problem. As long as the spider web was broken, with Lin Dongnan's cultivation at the 9th level of the body refining realm, the 9 tarantulas inside would not be enough for Lin Dongnan to defeat. Ho Tianxi stood in front of Tang Ao and said in a voice that only he and Tang Ao could hear, "You still have the mind to care about others? You should think about how you will die first. I've seen many people like you who are blindly confident, and I've killed many of them." As Tang Ao spoke, he stepped back. At the same time, his 100 battles spear's soul flew out and collided with Ho Tianxi's sneak attack. Although it was only one strike, Tang Ao was still quite satisfied. It was no coincidence that Ho Tianxi was able to obtain the title of Invincible. Moreover, Ho Tianxi was not as brainless as people imagined him to be when fighting against martial artists. Even though Ho Tianxi's cultivation was one level higher than Tang Ao's, he still chose to provoke Tang Ao before launching a sneak attack against Tang Ao. If Tang Ao was just an ordinary person, Tang Ao would have died under Ho Tianxi's sword. "You do have some ability. No wonder you are so arrogant." Ho Tianxi could not help but praise Tang Ao when he saw how easily he dodged his sword. At the same time, he could even counterattack. "Now, it is time for me to pay attention. As long as you can last 10 rounds against me, I will spare you." Ho Tianxi's words had yet to fade away when he stabbed out with his sword twice. Of the 2 attacks, each one was faster than the previous one, and each attack was filled with killing intent. The spear in Tang Ao's hand danced as he stabbed out several times, sealing off Ho Tianxi's sword light. At the same time, he stabbed out at Ho Tianxi's throat several times. However, Ho Tianxi was not a weakling either. The sword in his hand danced, and sword flowers bloomed. Chapter 1282. But now, Tang Ao had exchanged 7 moves with Ho Tianxi and was not at a disadvantage at all. Zhongshan had long known that Tang Ao's combat ability was not weak, But Zhongshan had never imagined that Tang Ao's combat ability was strong to such an extent. One had to know that the person Tang Ao was fighting now was not an ordinary body refining realm 6th level martial artist, but the pinnacle of the body refining realm 6th level martial artist, the genius martial artist Ho Tianxi. This Tang Ao must have used some secret technique. Otherwise, how could he be young Master Ho's opponent? So what if he used a secret technique? Even if he used a secret technique, he is still not young Master Ho Tianxi's opponent. If I were him, I would cut off an arm and be done with it. With young Master Ho Tianxi's magnanimity, even if he cuts off an arm, young Master Ho Tianxi will definitely not make things difficult for him. The surrounding martial artists were discussing loudly, so it was easy for Tang Ao to hear them. After hearing this person say that Ho Tianxi was magnanimous, Tang Ao could not help but laugh. Ho Tianxi was very unhappy that he had not taken down Tang Ao. In Ho Tianxi's opinion, Tang Ao was just a body-refining realm 5th level martial artist. He could not even last 3 moves against him, let alone 10. But now that 9 moves had passed, Tang Ao was only evenly matched with him. He was not at a disadvantage at all. If this continued, defeating Tang Ao within 10 moves was clearly a pipe dream. Clang! As Ho Tianxi's longsword clashed with Tang Ao's 100-battle soul spear again, Tang Ao immediately retreated. He held the 100-battle soul spear behind his back and said calmly, "Does young Master Ho's words still count?" The victor has yet to be decided. Enough nonsense. Let's fight again. After saying that, Ho Tianxi immediately rushed forward to fight Tang Ao again. As Tang Ao and Ho Tianxi fought again, a group of martial artists from afar also came over. Situ Qianqian was also mixed in with this group of martial artists. When Situ Qianqian arrived, she saw Tang Ao and Ho Tianxi fighting. Situ Qianqian was shocked because Ho Tianxi could be said to be an unparalleled figure in the Qingyin Union. Ever since he started cultivating, he had never met a match in the same realm. Right now, Tang Ao's cultivation was 1 level lower than Ho Tianxi's. How could Tang Ao be a match for Ho Tianxi? Thus, Situ Qianqian hurriedly ran to Zhongshan's side. "Uncle Zhong, why is senior brother Tang Ao fighting with Ho Tianxi? Quickly think a way to stop them." Zhongshan laughed dryly. "Your Uncle Zhong doesn't have that ability. However, little girl, you don't have to worry too much about that brat Tang Ao. Just now, he exchanged 10 moves with Ho Tianxi and didn't fall into a disadvantageous position. Seems like this brat is stronger than we thought. Just watch from the side with peace of mind." Situ Qianqian was stunned by Zhongshan's words. Tang Ao's cultivation was 1 level lower than Ho Tianxi's, but Tang Ao and Ho Tianxi exchanged 10 moves, and he actually didn't fall into a disadvantageous position. Even though she knew that Uncle Zhongshan wouldn't lie to her, Situ Qianqian's eyes were still filled with disbelief. Who is that guy fighting with Ho Tianxi? How is he so strong? Situ Qianqian and the others recognized Tang Ao, but most of the other martial artists didn't know who Tang Ao was. Are my eyes playing tricks on me? Why do I see that this brat only has a cultivation at the 5th level of the body, refining realm? If you didn't say it, I would have thought that I was the only one who saw that he only has a cultivation at the 5th level of the body, refining realm. What kind of situation is this? I have never seen anyone at the same level as Ho Tianxi who could beat him. How can a guy at the 5th level of the body, refining realm, be able to fight with Ho Tianxi? Look at the token on his waist. He is also a member of our Qingyin Union. When did our Qingyin Union have such a strong guy? I feel that he must have used some secret technique. Otherwise, how could he fight with young Master Ho to such an extent? Chapter 1283. Although Tang Ao felt that Ho Tianxi's character was a little lacking, Tang Ao still admired Ho Tianxi's usage of martial techniques and grasp of opportunities. Tang Ao thought to himself that if he and Ho Tianxi had reached the 5th stage of the body, refining realm for the first time, the outcome of this battle would have been hard to predict. As for now, Ho Tianxi and Tang Ao seemed to be evenly matched. However, Tang Ao knew that because of the 9 dragons Emperor's jade body, the yuan qi in his body was abundant. Even though he was only at the 5th stage of the body refining realm, the yuan qi in Tang Ao's body was comparable to a 7th-stage body refining realm martial artist. Therefore, if Ho Qianxi did not have a way to win in one move and continued to exhaust himself like this, Ho Qianxi would definitely lose. Ho Qianxi did not have a way to win in one move, but Tang Ao had many ways to win in one move. However, Tang Ao would not kill Ho Qianxi yet. Otherwise, he could kill Ho Qianxi hundreds of times with the Sky Polar Eyes, Hades Sword, and Primordial Sacred Sky Bow. While fighting Ho Qianxi, Tang Ao had scanned with his soul remembrance and discovered that Lin Dongnan was about to break through the wolf spider web. In Lin Dongnan's hands was a dagger-shaped immortal artifact fragment. Tang Ao sighed inwardly. It seemed like there were many treasures in Evergreen Valley. If this was the black-yellow continent or the ice and snow plains, it would not be easy for a body-refining realm martial artist to see an immortal artifact fragment, let alone have one. Thinking of this, Tang Ao could not help but think of the legend of the Xitagarbus Cemetery. It was rumored that the Xitagarbus Cemetery was the ruins left behind after a battle between 2 godly king realm experts. Afterward, a powerful aura leaked out from the Xitagarbus Cemetery, and countless experts rushed to the Xitagarbus Cemetery in search of the godly king's relics. These experts also had shocking battles while searching for treasures. Therefore, there were countless treasures hidden in the Xitagarbus Cemetery. In the Evergreen Valley on the Phaeacian continent, there were also ancient mutated demon beasts and many fragments of fairy artifacts. Thinking of this, Tang Ao understood many things. The Flying Star Continent was very likely to be a part of the Xitagarbus Cemetery. It was just that the strength of the experts and the fierce battle back then was too terrifying and directly shattered the space, causing the Flying Star Continent to wander into this space. You still dare to be distracted? You're courting death. Ho Qianxi looked at the slightly puzzled look in Tang Ao's eyes. How could he not know that Tang Ao was thinking about something else at this moment? Originally, Ho Qianxi had been suppressing his anger after failing to take down Tang Ao for so long. Now that he saw Tang Ao's relaxed appearance, he immediately forced Tang Ao back with his sword and immediately retreated. After Ho Qianxi retreated, the essence on his body immediately began to circulate rapidly. Strands of mist gathered around Ho Qianxi's body. At first, it was just mist. However, it slowly formed small droplets. Later on, they turned into streams of water that danced around Ho Qianxi. These streams of water seemed to be connected to Ho Qianxi's mind. As Ho Qianxi's thoughts changed, the streams of water released rhythmic fluctuations. Condense. Ho Qianxi formed hand seals, and the streams of water around him instantly transformed into extremely sharp icicles that hovered behind him. Furthermore, as his essence circulated, the strength and number of icicles slowly increased. Seeing the dozens of icicles hovering behind Ho Qianxi, the surrounding cultivators subconsciously retreated. Chapter 1284. An azure light flashed in Tang Ao's eyes. To Tang Ao, who had the skypole eyes, Ho Qianxi was joking when he used an ice-type technique against Tang Ao. Tang Ao could only say that Ho Qianxi was joking. Although the dozens of icicles that Ho Qianxi had summoned were all floating behind Ho Qianxi, Tang Ao could clearly sense and control these icicles when he used the skypole eyes. As long as Tang Ao was willing, Ho Qianxi would not even know how he died. However, although this Ho Qianxi was incomparably arrogant and had wanted to detonate the wolf spider web, Ho Qianxi still did not dare to kill Ho Qianxi. However, Tang Ao didn't dare to kill Ho Qianxi right now. Once Tang Ao killed Ho Qianxi, Tang Ao was sure that Ding Peng and the others behind Ho Qianxi would immediately join forces to besiege him. Moreover, since Ho Qianxi's father was the deputy union master of the Clear Sky Alliance, he most likely had some ability. While Tang Ao and Ho Tianxi were fighting, the spectators were also discussing softly. Although Tang Ao had not been at a disadvantage in the battle with Ho Tianxi, everyone still did not think that Tang Ao would win. This was because Ho Tianxi was not only at the 6th level of the body refining realm, but also represented the height of the 6th level. Who would have thought that young Master Tianxi would use the sunflower mysterious technique to deal with such a small character? What a pity. Under young Master Tianxi's sunflower mysterious technique, no martial artist can leave alive. That's right. This Tang Ao is not bad. Look at him. He is only at the 5th level of the body refining realm, but he can fight with young Master Tianxi to this extent. If his cultivation breaks through to the 6th level of the body refining realm, it will be hard to say who will win. TSK, do you think he has a chance to break through to the 6th level of the body refining realm? When has young Master Tianxi's sunflower mysterious technique ever failed? Sigh. Ding Cheng was the same back then. It was not easy for him to make a name for himself, but in the end, this martial artist wasn't able to continue speaking because when he mentioned Ding Cheng, Ding Peng's abnormally cold gaze had already locked onto him. If he continued, he would most likely become a dead man. Ding Cheng was Ding Peng's elder brother. This elder brother who had risked his life to save him was now Ding Peng's reverse scale. Anyone who touches the reverse scale of a dragon will die. Listening to the conversations of the people around her, Situ Qianqian, who had just calmed down, became nervous again. Situ Qianqian stayed in the Qingyun village for most of the year, so she did not know much about the experts in the Qingyun Union. However, Situ Qianqian had heard of Ho Tianxi's name before. Situ Qianqian had also heard of Ho Tianxi's famous sunflower water mysterious art. Now that she had personally seen the incomparably sharp icicles behind Ho Tianxi, Situ Qianqian was even more worried for Tang Ao. Uncle Zhongshan, what should we do now? Zhongshan was also a martial artist who guarded the Qingyun village for many years. Hence, compared to the others, Situ Qianqian was closer to Zhongshan. Zhongshan was also a valiant martial artist. It was just that because of an accident, he had to retreat from the encampment of the Qingyun Union to the Qingyun village. Now that he saw Tang Ao in danger, Zhongshan also furrowed his brows. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.